Okay, so we are doing Infinite Plane Saturn Day on Sunday. We were held up yesterday. Internet provider's fault. Wasn't Gremlins this time. I just wasn't able to get customer service to turn us on, but we're on now. And we're back on. My fault. I let some things slip my mind at the end of the month, but that's all right. I used the time constructively. And I released a PDF, not quite 100% final draft, but Lie World. The final version will have a lot of pictures, a lot of art that I've done through, of course, Grok for the most part, and Bing images. But Grok doesn't censor as much. In fact, I was trying to create images involving popular figures, and Bing will censor you. Bing was lobotomized because somebody made an image of Mickey Mouse hijacking an airplane and flying it into the Twin Towers. And they said, we can't have this. So they just destroyed it. And at the time, I was like, this is like taking away everybody's crayons because one kid wrote a bad word on the desk. But that's the world we live in. All right, so let's go ahead and go through the list of the main topics right now. It was drones, then it was fog, now it's snow. People are puzzled by snow. So I'll go ahead and just post this here. I mean, clouds have been getting people, airplanes. Ufology, by the way. I've said it today, ufology. I tweeted this to Mick West. It's not an ology. It's a superstition. We shouldn't mislabel it. But here's somebody who's suggesting that the snow is some kind of styrofoam, and she's squeezing a snowball. Says, I've made an observation because the snow was like styrofoam. I held it in my hand and squeezed it, and not a drop came out of it. When I did this as a kid, water would come out of it. Okay. And I feel like I have to warn this person not to eat the yellow snow. But that's where we're at. People are puzzled by snow, fog. Drones are somewhat out of the picture. And MSNBC, Lawrence O'Donnell claims, U.S.-born Army veterans are a greater terrorist threat than illegal immigrants. It's all about narrative here anyway. This is an info war. That terrorist attack with the ISIS flag, they're saying, oh, it's because he was in the military. He went to Fort Bragg. It's like, well, why didn't he have a flag that said U.S. Army? Go Army. Army of one. No, it was an ISIS flag. Like, their stories are contradictory. But here's a short clip where O'Donnell claims that U.S.-born Army veterans are a greater threat than illegal immigrants.
No one has ever...
And, just one point here to emphasize is that right after the truck attack, and I say attack in quotes, there were immediate claims that the person was sighted going through Eagle Pass, through the border, which just wasn't true. But anyway, let me play a short clip here.
White, Roman Catholic American family with roots in this country that go back farther than Donald Trump's roots in this country. The New Orleans terrorist, like Timothy McVeigh, reached the rank of sergeant in the United States Army. The simple fact is...
Timothy McVeigh made sergeant. And McVeigh's been somewhat, his ghost has been invoked here and there. I've seen some pretty big channels posting some videos showing how questionable the entire story was, including the fact that there was no autopsy, no burial. Some anomalies that I wasn't even aware of. And but it's been brought up. There's a TV show out now called The Order. It has to do with the Turner Diaries. And I was listening to someone do a reading of it today, but let me finish this clip.
This country has suffered more deadly terrorism at the hands of American-born citizens who are veterans of the United States military than people who have crossed into this country at the southern border.
I love these moral equivalencies. Okay, let's see who's here. 144,000, 2,300 days. HBIC, Mazel, Frugal Snowbird, Matt X, Neon Shades of Gray. What up, long time no see. Yeah, internet was down, but I use the time productively. There's a few projects I'm working on. A couple audiobooks. In fact, I'm doing an audiobook of Lie World. So if you haven't read it, you can wait, and I will be reading it myself. I'm not going to outsource it. I like to outsource audiobooks because the person you hire is going to promote it for the same reason that you are. So you have two people promoting it. But when it comes to the IPS content, it's too jargon laden for someone who doesn't know about the content or understand it or agree with it to read it like they know what they're, or sound like they know what they're talking about. So I'm just going to do it myself. Joined by Diana South. Thank you for joining the IPS site. Pell, Reverse History, Armin Ree, Mazel, P. Trippa, Deprogrammed Truther, Ted Stryker, Howard Boyd, says Shalawam Timmy Buddy. And I'm going to open up phones here in a bit too. Princess Poker Bear, Multi-Sea Dagger, thank you for joining. Okay, phones are open. 505-510-4226. I think last time we were here, we were talking about the Cybertruck blowing up outside of the Trump Hotel, and people are looking at this. And to be honest, I'm not disappointed in the level of skepticism that I'm seeing regarding this Cybertruck blowing up in front of the Trump Tower. I mean, the obvious symbolism, Musk, Trump, their whole bromance, but there's something else going on here where a lot of people are questioning whether it was a dummy, was it even real? I'm seeing what you could call auto-hoaxing, where they're not even accepting the premise that it happened, and now we need to figure out why or who, but they're questioning if it was even more than just special effects. Why wouldn't it be? If the Trump ear wound was fake, why would we assume anything that follows that seems to indicate a threat towards him would be real? So, the Cybertruck fire reminded me of a scene from Back to the Future, said Princess Bear Poker. Yeah, and as I alluded to the other day, the day before the Cybertruck fire, Elon Musk had responded to a tweet that said, Cybertruck, fire emoji, fire emoji. And he said, this is the future. And in that tweet, it had a image of the Cybertruck that looked like it was on fire or about to explode, which I'll get to here. It's amazing how much X has just taken over the shaping of the collective narrative on every event. It's like the go-to place. Blue Sky is there's no way Blue Sky is going to compete. Yeah, there's a few other things about this, like here, they found the guy's passport, the guy in the Cybertruck. So his body was burned beyond recognition, and yet his passport survived. We have his information right here. I was suggesting they need to make airplanes like Boeing. Boeing needs to find out who makes these passports for all these psyop events and make some of their planes out of it. And there's something else going on right now. I don't know if it's a trend, but there's this social credit score on X, and everybody's being rated 38. So I'm seeing a lot of people trying to figure out what 38 means. I'm not quite sure. Just catching up on notes, there's quite a lot going back here. It's ridiculous. Las Vegas Cybertruck blast suspect Matthew Livelsberger was in a military TV reality competition on the History Channel. You know, this is ironic because I describe often how the purpose of fake news is to, day by day, create fake history. It doesn't mean everything's fake by any stretch. Good liars only lie strategically when they can get away with it to people they get to trust them. And our media psyops steer the bigger narratives. So they just have to lead the way. And the idea that this guy who blew himself up in the Cybertruck was in the History Channel pretending to be a soldier in some competition, this suggests to me that we're looking at reality TV. And that's what I mean when I say they merge the world stage with the movies, with theater, with the fake. Merging real and fake means simply that they're acting out their pre-planned historic narratives on the world stage as though it were reality TV. So let me play a clip here.
From around the world against each other.
Matt and Tim from the U.S. Army Special Forces, better known as the Green Berets.
Green Berets. Almost sounds like a Luigi reference. But just scrolling through here, you see he's a TV star. And the guy that ran the truck through the Christmas parade was also on the BBC. And the guy who ran the truck a car through some other public event a month before had also been on TV. Ryan Routh, the guy that shot at Trump or was about to, was on BBC. Thomas Matthew Crook was on a commercial for BlackRock. So I think there's a pattern here.
It took Tim Kelly a while to put 2 and 2 together.
And then I saw a Matt Berg with a older photo of him, and I was like, oh no, dude, I know that guy. And then it just like tore my heart out because he was a really great Green Beret.
And what was he like?
He was charming. He was talented. He was personable. He was kind. He was all the things that you would expect from a Green Beret.
Okay, there we go. So now we know that the guy in the Cybertruck, who drove through Albuquerque apparently, and I do notice Cybertrucks. They stand out. They look like these big metal trash cans with swingy lids that they have at the mall. It's like my first thought when I see these things. They're aesthetically just nightmarish. I don't know why. I mean, they look like appliances. I mean, the metal, it looks like my refrigerator. Bombshell after bombshell. Email from Matthew Livesberger claims drones on the East Coast are utilizing gravity manipulation. It claims China and the United States are the only ones with anti-gravity drones, and the U.S. needs to come clean about weaponizing exotic technology. I've seen a few other stories spin off here. Mango Penguin says off to a great year. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's like a very psyop-rich environment, likely because of something that's coming. They got to get our attention. January 6th, that's tomorrow. Are the Democrats going to January 6th? We're going to have some left-wing J6ers? It's likely. I was looking at some videos of gathering mobs. Lefties are, in fact, getting ready for some kind of insurrection. Now, here's an interesting point that 777 brought up. We had remarked on how Luigi was brought out dressed up like Lee Harvey Oswald. Same kind of setup as well. Like they're reenacting Oswald. And he said here, why did they dress him like Oswald? Is Luigi going to be taken out? So are they going to Jack Ruby him? Interesting question. Are they going to Jack Ruby Luigi Mangione? Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have a conspiracy theory that Alex Jones may have been replaced by AI. I think he sold his likeness. I think this is a sim. I don't know if you've seen him or heard him lately, but he's not the same person. It's like an idealized version of him. He's fitter, he's tanner, better teeth. And he's acting like a WWE character, but on random. It's almost like he's flipping through characters. And I get the idea we're looking at some kind of AI Alex Jones. Like I think they replaced him. Kind of like that movie with Al Pacino called Sim 1, where there's this TV star who doesn't exist. She's a simulation. Well, I kind of think Jones has been replaced. Let me go ahead and play this short clip.
CIA, hell, last week he put out tweets about the CIA at war with America. God almighty.
Like, it sounds like a soundboard. You know, a soundboard has like their key clips and different voices. This is just everything Alex Jones has ever done or said. All his major takes and expressions. He goes from raging to crying to this maniacal evil villain thing. But he does it all in 30 seconds. Take a listen.
Jones sold out retweeting that. God, I apologize to all of you. I'm sorry. I sold out. I tried to stop the pedophile rings, the giant Muslim kidnapping rings. I'm sorry. I kissed Elon Musk's ass. We're so close to getting the globalists. I want their throat.
All right, well, I mean, at least he's not talking about eating people, but I don't know. A lot of people are noticing it doesn't look like him. And just a reminder, we have a point. Elon Musk posted this. It looks like CGI, but these are real videos from the Polaris program space mission. So here's Musk agreeing with the IPS. It does look like CGI. Now, just because it looks like CGI doesn't mean it is, but generally speaking, things in reality don't look like computer simulations. Mizell says that guy's head is shaped different. Matt X says, is that Alex Jones? I thought it was Triple H. Yeah, I think they swapped him out. Till says it seems like Alex Jones doing a character of Alex Jones. Yeah, and this clip has gone viral because they're talking about how he's raging in defense of Musk, but that's missing the point. The thing I find interesting about it is that it doesn't look like him. It looks like an AI version where if you bought him, it's like, here's 100 catchphrases, here's your like chat GPT like interface, and you just tell him what to say and he does it. And I'm getting the impression that this is something of an AI thing. Like maybe he sold it. He sold the skin. He's basically out of it. Observing Reality says, I'm going to have to go watch an episode. Yeah, AI Jones. We'll just call him AI Jones from now on. Zinvala says, who loses a $1 billion lawsuit and gets healthy and fit and happy? Right. Or he's ready for another January 6th. He's like, hey, last time I was winded running up that hill. So he spent the last 4 years preparing for the next J6. Well, he wouldn't be insurrectioning this time. But he's fit for insurrection. Last time, the whole group, I looked through it if you haven't seen it lately, if you haven't looked at the J6 footage. Every time the news shows it, they show this wide view. But you see all these swinging flagpoles. If you look at it really objectively and clearly, like slow-mo especially, frame by frame as Woo's News, it's easy to make the case that it was a big simulated riot. Like in a movie, like Braveheart, for example, where you do have large crowds of people doing performative combat. And I think that's what we were seeing. Till says, look where the Cybertruck's design came from. Elon's trolling. If it's Blade Runner? If it's Blade Runner, we talked about this when it first came out. Because a Blade Runner, yeah. Oh, this is something else. A dustbin. Yeah, I've seen that one. Look, I mean, aesthetically speaking, UPS trucks look better than Cybertrucks. But in reality, the Cybertruck came out of Blade Runner. And in Blade Runner, it was set in 2019 Los Angeles, which is the month and year that the Cybertruck was released. It's a deliberate sci-fi tie-in, sort of like Elon Musk himself. He's 100% a science fiction construct. And recently his father has come out even admitting that Elon Musk was deliberately named for the Elon, this character in the Werner von Braun book, Mars, A Technical Tale. So continuing here, why is everyone getting a 38 score? I don't know. We'll get back to that one. So we're going to reach a conclusion here with regard to the final experiment, because a lot of people are mad that people are questioning the final experiment, and I think a lot of people are justified in their skepticism. Is it wrong to say I don't trust the source? Is it wrong to say that they would fake something like that? No. But we do have to acknowledge the facts as they are presented, if there are such facts. And I think we're going to have some kind of an answer to this whole thing tomorrow. This is called A Flat Earth Debate Was the Final Experiment Faked? And this is scheduled for tomorrow. So tomorrow evening at Fight the Flat Earth, he's going to be debating with Steve. Now, I don't know who this Steve is, but the subject of the debate is going to be, was the final experiment faked? And, you know, whatever the end result of this particular debate, Witsit Gets It is never going to vape again. Because 90% of the skepticism is specifically a result of Vapegate. There's a couple more videos that I found interesting by Level Earth Observer. And this is just bizarre. In one moment you have Witsit Gets It saying he doesn't vape, he quit vaping, and he accidentally brought it to Antarctica, and he was looking through his battery chargers, he found the vape and decided to just hit it. So he quit vaping, but he decided just to start vaping. And so, like, okay, that kind of doesn't make sense. I don't know how long a vape holds a charge, but it's just sitting in a bag. He accidentally... I don't think you can accidentally take anything to Antarctica. I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that everything would be looked through, but, you know, I've read some stuff about how even certain things are prohibited, but regardless, he's not a vapor, but he brought his vape and he decides to vape. But he says he wasn't vaping on camera to pretend like his breath was foggy. So starting with that, let me play this clip.
Yeah. traveling. That's because I used an old little bag I used for chargers, and it had a vape in there from way back in the day, because I did used to vape. I don't vape now. And so I did hit that vape a couple times when I was in Antarctica. But I did absolutely, objectively not hit a vape, walk over to the scene, to the screen, and then exhale it to fake my breath.
Okay, so he's adamant, just over 3 days ago, didn't take a hit on a vape. Of course, I highlighted the water situation.
So he's a non-vapor again. But now, here's what he says after this in a different conversation, where he's talking about how he keeps his vape in a pocket in his sleeve, and it's really easy for him to vape it whenever. Here we go.
I would exhale real quickly, then I walked over there. I tried to make sure there was no smoke anywhere involved whatsoever. I exhaled so far away from the computer that when I saw my breath, I was surprised, right? Because I was like, oh, what's up now? And I also had drank water when I went inside. So I'm like, what's up now? You guys are about to see my breath.
So there's a lot of over-explaining. It's just kind of strange. I think it's funny in a way that he appears to be pretending like he can show his breath fogging, but he can only do it for one breath, and then the second breath, it's just like a little bit. I'm like, okay. And then he says, what up now? Like, I proved you guys wrong. Look at me, I'm in Antarctica. So that's a little shady. It's a little sketchy. You shouldn't have to fake it. But, yeah, and also, yes, Jaron did also admit that this guy had a vape, but why would you say you're not a vapor? And then you have a vape, and so you decide to just vape it. And then here, this is what's purported to be evidence that he was pretending to breathe, and his breath was fogging, when in fact he's kneeling and hitting the vape pen. So this is something that speaks very highly. So people want to attack the critics of the final experiment. To me, this is excellent skepticism. This is crowdsourced intel. This is random people on their own doing their own research. You're going to tell them it's disgusting to do their own research, that it's wrong for them to question their community influencers. Leonard says sketchy. Vape doozled, said Salty Siren. Exactly. Shill-splaining, says Princess Bear Poker. Yeah, here's what I find kind of bizarre about it. If I was going to go to the foothills here, out in the Sandia wilderness, I could record 30 seconds of footage on my phone and unequivocally prove that's where I am. And yet they're not able to just make the case in 30 seconds. Like, what's the deal? It's like, what is the deal here? Why is it so shady, questionable? And then you have these things that shouldn't even be said. Like, how many of these individuals said, hey, these mountains, haha, look like they're right over there. Like, I could touch them, but they're 10 miles away. Like, that was shady. The only person who would say, those mountains 10 miles away look like I could touch them, would be somebody in an MGM, Amazon, or some kind of studio like that. The Mandalorian was shot in one. So that's what we're bringing up. And whether or not that is the case, it is good to know such things exist, because that's how they're going to fake the moon landing, rather the moon bases and the Mars bases. But something else too, I don't know if it's, I don't know how people are explaining this away. So I'm not even making any real judgment calls on this, other than I need more information because it's so shady. So here's an example. We Are Change, Justin Robert, who often confronts the astronauts about bubbles in space and about faking the Challenger explosion. Many of you know him. And he said, I stand with Witsit Gets It. He's handled the claims of faking Antarctica well. Listen to his entire stream explaining his criticism. But then he adds, lights in the sky will not determine the shape of the floor. I don't know what to make of that necessarily. It sounds like cognitive dissonance. But for the most part here, this is the tactic. I'm having influencers tell you not to trust your skepticism, not to hold on to your doubts. And I'm saying keep doubting until you're convinced. I'd like to be convinced, please. I would like to be convinced, but I'm not, because I don't trust these people. I mean, let me just bring it up like this. This is like a point that I wanted to raise the other day, is that if it was faked, who do you think faked it? If the final experiment is a hoax or a psyop, who was behind it? NASA. There's no other explanation. So if we're looking at this thing skeptically, it's because we're looking at this as a potential NASA hoax, a hoax on the scale of a fake moon landing. But the absurdity of it, of faking something like this, yeah, it's like, why would they do it now? Why not 8 years ago? And even if it was perfectly legitimate, it's funny in itself that these people who have spent years criticizing and criticizing without doing their own investigation finally do it, and now they're subject to that. But that's how it is when you're surrounding yourselves with non-believers and skeptics. If you live by skepticism, you have to, you can't just change your standards of evidence and say, because I like this person, I'm going to trust what he said. If I go to Antarctica, I would expect you to accuse me of faking it at the Las Vegas drone and misspending all the money I was supposed to use in Antarctica. I would expect somebody to say that. But then you could also expect of me that I would have evidence to corroborate. Dirk Zink says, the other day I heard Elon admit there's a firmament around the Earth space is fake. There are some people suggesting that there's a real sun and an apparent sun, and the apparent sun is the one that you see in Antarctica, and it's not the other sun. But to prevent that, I did see images of sunspots that suggested that we're only looking at one sun. So how does anyone explain it? How would you explain the sun remaining in one place, on one section rather, of Antarctica, which is supposed to be an entire perimeter? But before I can even confront that, I have to know for sure that what we are shown wasn't a hoax. Woodchipper says, lights in the sky do not determine the shape of the floor. It's a Jaren quote. I've heard that for a long time. Back when I first started talking about this with some people, I heard that mantra from someone when we were talking about southern star trails. And it's kind of a non-answer, if anything. Whereas the ice wall says Tomanoid. I never maintained or believed in any sort of ice wall. I always thought it was kind of a joke. I always thought the most likely explanation is human greed, power, control, that kind of thing. So if there's some kind of deception regarding the maps, it's going to be done for the same reason that they have deceptions regarding our mental maps, our histories. So in other words, they're hiding land, hiding resources. Like that would be the most likely explanation. We're quarantined. We don't have access to the good parts. And they show us crappy CGI versions of it, so we never know what we're missing. That could explain it. That explains it a lot more than science is hiding God, which makes no sense. Biblical flat earth was a non-starter because we're not talking about a theological proposition. We're talking about geography. And I think we need to keep our conversations focused. Let's not bring the Bible into a conversation about whether we're looking at fake blood or if it was a real event. We're analyzing psyops. And the flat earth topic has just been too mixed in with religiosity. And with that becomes just a cluster of beliefs, and it never got anywhere objective. And the people who had faith in it didn't feel the need to investigate. They wanted to congregate. I started calling them conference earthers because they're like gathering in conferences trying to build a consensus instead of going south and proving their claims. And the IPS was behind a number of individuals who wanted to go to Antarctica. 2020 kind of put a stop to it, but we could not get any widespread support. I brought this up to everybody, anybody who's anybody in the topic, and they all said the same thing. You can't go to Antarctica because the Navy ships there will shoot you. You can't go into Antarctica because humans aren't allowed. 1957 treaty. They would just throw these phrases out there and the conversation would end. But now, suddenly, it's okay to go. And if no one trusts the final experiment, you have one of two options. You can be accused of reality denialism, or you can go get your own evidence, which means you can go on your own. Because to reject that evidence is intellectually dishonest. And you can't just move the goalpost. You can't say, if you prove this, then this, and then change at the last minute, which is kind of what happened. So if anything, we just need to send somebody that we trust. And one more thing, I haven't seen it. I'm trying to get this. Flatzoid put out a video where at Union Glacier, there's a 24/7, 365 still cam. And the stationary camera was covering the same area where the flat Earth final experiment took place. Well, if you remember, the final experiment took place under a clear sky. But strangely enough, the static cam recorded an overcast sky in the same area at the same camp. So who are you going to believe? The static cam time lapse that showed an overcast, or the final experiment that had an unambiguous, perfectly clear sky? That's a discrepancy that we need to get to the bottom of. Okay, let's continue here. So I can appreciate that some people out of loyalty want to believe and trust, but that's naive. Anybody can be purchased or compromised. I mean, trusting people in the conspiracy realm is also highly questionable. And what I mean is, this is an area where discourse goes outside of the bounds of government media mind control, and they have a vested interest in controlling what people think. And from our own observations and experiences and interactions, we've encountered many people who were federal informants who were just conspicuously put in front of entire groups of conspiracy theorists based on their opinions. So I'm like, why is the Flat Earth Conference led by a bunch of questionable individuals who are 1 degree separated from the worst types of people on Earth? Why do you have parolees speaking at a Flat Earth Conference and talking to the Daily Beast and giving them talking points to use against the free flow of information? Because that's what came out of it. And when we got to the bottom of it, we realized, okay, a lot of the people who are platformed are compromised, really just puppets. Dirk Zink says, look how they paid off all the doctors during COVID. I wonder how much they paid all those dancers. And who did the choreography on all these dances? There needs to be a deep dive research into the COVID dancers. It's like nobody remembers that we were told one story, but you look at the videos online and all these hospitals are doing synchronized, choreographed dancing, goofing around, really. I mean, playing around in the hospitals like it was a playground. And that's just what we saw. I mean, it looked like they opened up the pharmacies and said, just have fun. But we saw them playing, like basically doing music videos, clowning around, pole dancing, got an IV thing, and they're pole dancing on it. But I'm sure that's all they did. Okay, continuing here, going down my... Now, this is something that I was trying to catch up on. So I've been watching the series called The Boys on Amazon. And the reason why is that the season finale had a title called Assassination Run that was changed after the Trump event. And this episode aired 5 days after Trump's ear was shot. So here's something that I noticed yesterday, because I've been watching the series. Actually, I completed it. So the 4th season, 7th episode, had 2 references to Oswald. A reference to Oswald and a reference to Dealey Plaza. And that episode and the following episode were both about a plot to take out the president. So that was the main theme. Now, it's not a coincidence that the main character, the Homelander, is based on Trump. I mean, this is like satire. You have another character, Sparkles, who's based on Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm pretty sure there's a Candace Owens character. Like, you can see these direct parallels because... So this takes place after a January 6th like insurrection thing, where you have this plot. Now, on the episode prior to the final episode, you see this poster on the wall. And it is the Homelander, and I'm putting it up on the screen now, posing with the sky behind him, and then behind him you have the American flag. And right in the center, that's a bullet hole. The screen has a bullet hole on it. So it's like he's, okay, so again, season 4, episode 7. And then there's some guy behind him with sunglasses. I think that's the Washington Monument. But anyway, this is the Trump character. And I would call this a predictive programming proxy. So he's a stand-in for Trump. And if it wasn't so obvious even, Netflix, Amazon wouldn't have changed the show title. So here's just the juxtaposition. Here's Trump, sky behind him, same angle, cloud flying back there, guy right behind him with sunglasses. See how closely that aligns? Even the guy with the sunglasses behind him. So this is, again, a bullet hole on that picture. This is season 4, episode 7, talking about Oswald, talking about a couple of things like the Dealey Plaza. Now here's the next part of it. So the very next episode begins with this. This is season 4, episode 8. Viewer discretion advised. This episode contains scenes of fictional political violence. Any similarities to recent events are coincidental and unintentional. Prime Video, Amazon MGM Studios, Sony Pictures Television, and the producers of The Boys, in the strongest terms, are against real-world violence. So they had to put this on the next episode, and they changed the title from Assassination Run. Now, interestingly, in that episode, the first one, the Trump-esque character, commits some horrendous act of violence, and he's sitting there smiling with his face covered in blood. And so when you look up this series, and of course now it's just the season finale, and this is one of like 50 examples I could bring up. That show NBC season finale pulled because of the Uvalde school shooting. We have so many examples, but this particular episode, the Assassination Run, was brought up, here we go, mere days after the actual unsuccessful assassination attempt on Trump, and the season finale revolves around the plot to kill the fictional president. But if you look at any of the images associated with this finale and all the reportage, you saw the Homelander Trump character with his bloody face. And again, this is just one of many examples. But note here that Amazon is reacting to it by putting a warning label on here with the assumption that people are making these connections. It's not intentional, it's a coincidence. Now, how many coincidences does it have to take before you can say it's intentional? Yeah, Salty Siren, Candace Owens, producer, filmed The Final Experiment. I think it's going to be a Netflix, and I think she's going to be interviewing Vapes It, Gets It, or Wits It, Vapes It. She's going to be interviewing him very soon. Which is very suspect, because Candace Owens is one of those individuals who gets paid to say whatever she's going to say. And right now she's just reiterating a lot of conspiracy theory claptrap, like 9/11 trutherism. Very far behind. These aren't truthers. These aren't investigators. They're not investigative reporters. They're not journalists. They are propagandists. There's no other explanation. They are propagandists and LARPers. What was interesting about this series that I just watched, The Boys, is that you do have direct parallels. Like, I kind of think A-Train has some yay in him. Like, there's these direct parallels. This other character, the smartest woman on earth, actually is based, I think, on Candace Owens. These are all right-wingers. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the character Sparkles. They even use direct quotes. They have a Flat Earth conference, and the Marjorie Taylor Greene character is talking about how Jewish space lasers are controlling people's minds. That's a direct quote from MTG. But I have so many more examples of this that I am putting together in a series, because for people who are new to this, it's a lot to take in, and I can't just break it down in 5 seconds. So I think to make it easier, I want to do a series of half-hour-long documentaries, and I have a series of them kind of outlined. And the first one I'm going to do is about Butler, where in half an hour I break down as best I can the correlation between a fake event and the saturation of the event through the medium of entertainment. Movies, books, comics, games, and how they're able to reach a critical mass of people with a very specific meme anytime they want. Look what they did with drones. Look what they did with the manufactured folk hero Luigi. And I listen to left-wing podcasts to see where they're at. And one of them, Daily Beast podcast, was complaining that the New York Times won't put Luigi's face on the cover. Another one was saying, well, yeah, it's murder, but it's an expression of the popular will. So you have people who are justifying it on the left. They see him as a hero. Some guy compared him to Robin Hood. And day one, I said, this guy's like, he's got the Joker template, the Joker narrative, and he's got the hood. He's fighting the rich to benefit the poor. This is a proto-Marxist class warrior. So the fact that they're calling him Robin Hood, all by design. But these characters are 100% manufactured, and we've been peeling back the layers. Okay, let's continue. And just as a poll here, put a 1 in chat if you think the flat earth experiment was legitimate. Put a 2 if you think that it was fake. Or 3 if you're undecided. So again, if you think it was real, 1, 2 fake, 3 undecided. I would argue that the people who believe it's real are non-skeptical. The people who think it's fake, if they have reasons, and undecided, can you make that claim? Can you claim to be undecided? You can, I think, until maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow there's going to be a final debate on it. But for me, Vapegate really kills it. I mean, I feel bad. A multi-million-dollar psyop by what was likely an unscripted event. So we have, I'm not going to name drop you if you're calling it fake. You can keep, I'll just fake, 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 fake. Holding judgment, fake, real, fake, fake, fake. Fake, fake. Nobody here is convinced by it. And that's not your fault. Like, you don't have to feel bad because their psyops are crap. You really don't. Like, they should feel bad for not delivering. By the way, this is something that just happened a couple days ago. Space debris landed in Kenya. Looks like leftover rocket hardware. So space junk is still a thing. So drones, fog, snow, space junk. Kevin Mooring says, lots of actors from Fort Bragg, which is now Fort Liberty, didn't Bane say this is your liberation? Yeah, Bane would be another Trump, right? Another Trump proxy. And there's quite a lot in anything Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan. These are people who are in the business of this. So there's this thing called the psyop entertainment complex. Forget about the military industrial complex. It's fake. The psyop entertainment complex is this area where handpicked, initiated, chosen ones, I don't know how they're picked. Could be talent. But the best directors, the best writers, and video game makers at some point make a deal with the government. And this is everywhere. And that deal is basically, you're going to be a conduit for propaganda. Just do what we say. And it's not necessary that the propaganda vectors know the big picture. They don't even have to know that the events are fake. In all likelihood, they don't. So if you're a director, you're making a movie, and you're part of the crew, you're making it, you just see these as an eerie coincidence, which is how they generally describe them. If you recall, after the train derailed in Palestine, Ohio, people who are in the movie White Noise, which eerily, coincidentally foreshadowed it, people who are in the movie had to evacuate because of the real thing. And they were interviewed. So you're looking at this overlapping of real and fake. So in all likelihood, the people interviewed who are in the movie were being interviewed as crisis actors. They weren't even really under any kind of a threat because the thing was fake. But my point here, is simply that this is the rule, not the exception. It's rare that the media notices its own fakery. Like, it'll just call it a coincidence and dismiss it. But what we have been observing and accumulating is a body of evidence that suggests that no, this is actually how it operates. And that the psyop entertainment complex has the job of doing psyops that merge news with public expectations shaped through the propaganda vectors of entertainment. The fact that our entertainment has been seized, co-opted for the purposes of propaganda shouldn't surprise anybody. It's not an extraordinary claim. It's totalitarian. So here's a pull quote from Edward Bernays' book, Propaganda. It says, chapters 1 through 6 address the complex relationships between humans, democracy, psychology, corporations. Bernays' thesis is that invisible people who create knowledge and propaganda rule over the masses. They have a monopoly on the power to shape thoughts, values, and citizen response. Engineering consent of the masses is vital for the survival of democracy. But here's the quote. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism constitute an invisible government. This is the true ruling power. We're governed, our minds are molded, our ideas suggested by men we've never heard of. So this isn't just like a conspiracy theory. It's not just conjecture. This is not sci-fi. Edward Bernays is the founder, the creator, progenitor of public relations, of perception management stunts. Not only that, but his nephew is the founder of Netflix. This is something we've talked about before. They're related to Freud, but my point here, this person had actually put his ideas into action. And so he's very well known for what you would call perception management stunts. Or psyops. Okay, next. Now this is something I meant to play this quote here. People think this is a slip. This is Wits It, Vapes It, Gets It, where he's...
Today I'm going to be saying goodbye.
I have to play this clip. Now, it could just be a slip, but you remember, in one of the early videos, there were some people remarking on how they looked like the mountains could be touched. Like, I could touch that mountain right there, even though it's ostensibly miles away. But it looks like somebody here said something, or he said something to the effect of a screen. It's a screen slip up. And here's the direct quote. Objectively, not hit a vape, walk over to the screen, to the scene. Let me play this clip and you can decide for yourself. Are people being too hypercritical? You know, is this too much? Should we just give the benefit of the doubt? Okay, here we go. I'm going to play this clip here where I think he says something about a screen. Now, again, this is possibly grasping at straws, but...
Camera, okay? This was just over 3 days ago. He's claiming that it came down to him drinking some water inside the cabin. Of course, I highlighted that's ridiculous because you don't have to hold your breath.
That's another point, too. He had suggested he walked to the cabin in order to moisturize his mouth so that he could demonstrate breath fog. But if that were true, as is pointed out here, why did he leave the water bottle in the room? Why wouldn't he have taken it out there? So that's an interesting point. But anyway, people are remarking here that he said the word screen at 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
A couple times when I was in Antarctica, but I did absolutely, objectively not hit a vape, walk over to the scene, to the screen, and then...
Walk over to the screen. That could have been a Freudian slip.
Absolutely, objectively not hit a vape, walk over to the scene, to the screen, and then...
Interesting. Dinah South says, why not walk 5 miles and touch the glacier? Good question. Yeah, that's my thing is, what are they not showing you? That if it were real would be there. You know, what is conspicuously absent? So anyway, there's a reason why people think it's sus. Saying the word screen, the drone object detection sensor going off as it went close to the screen. Yeah, there was a boot left in the middle of the thing. Some weird masony stuff, which I don't even think you need to get into. I mean, do you need to throw in the weird boot thing? I don't know. I mean, that is kind of weird, I have to say. But anything that they've done has been scrutinized. And I applaud the people who are scrutinizing this, who are questioning it. The whole point of it is not about the shape of the world. You know, that's really not my point here either. I mean, who really cares? This is really about worldview, how you get it. And the institutions that we have entrusted with telling us what's outside of our direct range of perception have been proven to be pathological liars. That's why we're not trusting. Zinvala says, I think seeing is more of a slip than computer screen. Right. Was this, this could have been filmed here in Albuquerque at the New Mexico Netflix studios. How hard would it be? This is like rear screen projection. As a rule, anything they do in the movies, they can fake on the news. That's just axiomatic. Now, if you're saying that they couldn't possibly fake being in Antarctica on film, I would ask, well, then how do they fake being on Mars in that Matt Damon movie? Like, obviously, faking alien environments is not that complicated. What about the tracking devices? There are other questions, and this is all going to be brought up tomorrow. But you have to assume, too, again, if it's fake, it's not like Jaren's faking people or Witsit or McToon want to pull a fast one. If it's faked, the only conclusion you can arrive at is if it's faked, it's a NASA psyop. It would have to be. Who else would be behind it? If this is legitimately not real, then you're looking at the work of NASA. So that's kind of what's steering my take on it. YD says, you're not buying into the narrative of it being fake. I'm just not accepting it as evidence until I see something convincing. We're asking the question, is it fakeable? And if you think it's not fakeable, then you're not aware of the fakeability of alien environments. But was this entire thing fake? Well, I think it's unlikely that someone like McToon would be secretly a flat earther and trying to conceal this. That wouldn't make much sense. Shape trader is what he would be called. But I'm not even making the point that I think it's fake. I'm saying I don't believe it's real based on what I've been shown so far, because it fits within the framework of fakeability. And if we're talking about this being a hoax, we have to look at it critically, as we would anything else that we look at when we're presented with something from the space agencies. Obviously, it's not a green screen. Green screen is old tech. They still use it on the ISS for some dumb reason. If they did demonstrate a 24-hour sun, it in no way validates all the space fakery. But I'm kind of ambivalent about it. Like, it's not like I am calling it fake because Witsit did the vape thing. That's just comical. And they should be taking it better. They should be... really, how difficult would it be to unequivocally prove that you're in Antarctica? It's not that difficult. But there are certain things that people consider to be discrepancies, which will be discussed tomorrow. And I have a link, so if you're going to watch that, it's on Fight the Flat Earth. But there has to be rules with debates. Like, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. At the end of the debate, there has to be some concessions. Like, okay, fine, it's a ball, or the ball model best explains, but you can't consider it a full model without explaining what space is if what we've been shown from outer space has been invalidated. So if the space fakery is indeed fakery, which I say it is, then I couldn't possibly settle on the globe model as being 100% accurate. The map can't be the territory. We have to have more information. And I'd say the same thing with the flat earthers. Like, you can't say you're on a flat earth. You need more information. All right, phones are open, 505-510-4226. And if you do think it was real, call in and tell us what convinced you. Because if you were convinced by low information, this is something I would throw in here, is that to be convinced because you saw it or you trusted somebody, or to say, I don't know, I'm just going to trust them, that's low information belief. And I'm against that. I think if all you have access to is low information, then you should say, I don't believe it yet. But you have to get as much information as you can. And so I got the information. I watched what they presented us with. I examined all their evidence. But then I also added on to that other information that came to me from the other sources. Like, hey, look, simulated virtual reality set or virtual sets, LED screens, Las Vegas Sphere. Then we're throwing in Vapegate. No penguins. So all kinds of red flags are going up. So with our broader base of knowledge and information, we're saying, okay, well, we don't believe it. We know what you know, we've seen what you've seen, but we have a little more information. So I'm just saying this is informed disbelief. But if you believe it, please let me know what you found compelling. 505-510-4226. And then at the end of the day, if it's real, it's going to be demonstrated as such, and then we can move on. It shouldn't be that difficult. It's the same problem with the mass media, is that they own the burden of proof. If they can't provide it, they can't shame us for not believing, which is what they do. So right now, I think it's ironic that the people on the flat side are having to experience skepticism from the perspective that the media has felt it this entire time. And when the media lashes out and they call you a conspiracy theorist and crazy, that's kind of what you're doing. That's kind of what they're doing. That's what they've done. When Jaron said you're dead to him if you don't believe him, that's like CNN saying you're just a conspiracy theorist crazy person who should be 5150. So I think we should encourage skepticism, but it has to be, of course, legitimate good faith skepticism. You can't reject evidence. Kevin Morin says, Friday, the Don gets sentenced in Gotham. Is Q going to finally go away? Is the Q movement going to die off now that Trump got his way? The whole thing was just part of an election strategy, if you ask me. The whole thing was just a way to get conspiracy theorists to become GOP. So just to recap here, I just want to point out what the IPS think tank has done. Because, we're not just, you're going to go to Awake Souls channel. Interesting. So those guys are simulation theorists. And I would say anybody with a model is arriving at a conclusion prematurely. As far as I know, they haven't traveled. So when they say, believe my model, I'm like, I don't know. For the same reason, I don't know about Antarctica. I don't know about their video. And I'm not ignoring stuff. I've actually looked through several videos of people in Antarctica, and I compared it to the final experiment. And maybe it's just me, but the final experiment looks a little stagey. Everything's so clean, no wind, clear skies, nice weather, their ears aren't turning red. It doesn't look like the Antarctica in the other videos that I've seen. So these discrepancies are reason enough to give me pause. But I just want to point out that what our channel has done over the last couple of years specifically is we've been confronting what I call guardrails. These are false explanations or narratives that prevent people from calling out the fakery or even perceiving media fakery itself. So here's a short list. We have defeated chemtrails, the Mandela effect. We exposed the QAnon psyop deeper than anybody. We even have info about a QAnon psyop operative in the White House press corps. We annihilated false flag theory. False flag theory is just defunct. We've removed the bloody guardrail. The bloody guardrail being maybe somebody died or somebody died at that event. Okay, we've dealt with that. We've also figured out the method in the madness with regard to propaganda messaging and foreshadowing, which precedes future fake news events. We figured out the alignment, the entrainment between entertainment and news. So we do have the best and clearest explanation so far for the very purpose of fake news itself. So this is just something to point out that our think tank has a purpose. This is the objective breakdown of media fakery. And I don't like getting sidetracked. And we've dealt with different rabbit trails at various times just as a way of, I think, clarifying our positions. And we are challenging a lot of orthodoxies. So, for example, any kind of claims that there are dark occultists planting messages in media, like those types of ridiculous claims, we've kind of done away with it because we have figured out that this is actually quite mundane. Joe Santos says, the other video of the same camp, they almost fly a drone 1,000 feet up to show the whole area, but it doesn't seem like they did that. Yeah, I was told about that too. I mean, I was shown the drone footage, but I thought, that drone footage, it's like, I've seen rover footage on Mars. They show it every week now. Oh, look, live on Mars. It's like a squirrel runs by. It's like, come on. You're in Arizona. That was a ground squirrel. Or flies. YD says, be clear, it's not a simulation. It's a stereographic virtual reality. I don't know if that's true. I don't have a term I'm not a simulationist. I'm not a flat earther. I'm not a gloober. But I do think I have something of a model. I could say a metaphysical model, but shape isn't really the main feature, if anything. Like, I'm kind of the opinion that we are the very purpose for the universe itself. I think it's really human-centric. I don't think that we are latecomers to the scene, that we evolved after the thing arrived, and that when we kill ourselves off, it's going to continue without us, indifferent to us. I don't think that's the case. I really think it's about us. I could be wrong. I don't think so. But before I ever even started becoming skeptical of NASA, I was already just considering, just by my own experiences, the nature of things, and realizing that the model we've been given is kind of dead. If anything, it's an exoteric cover for the real thing. But we're not a fortunate, lucky accident that we arrived here by a natural process late to the scene, and that we just have some, I guess, coping mechanism to help us deal with the meaninglessness of everything, where we invent the idea of a soul and meaning. I don't think that's the case. I think we've been given a very dark version of things, where it does seem meaningless and nihilistic. And I used to believe all this stuff. I used to believe the news. I used to think that it was a foregone conclusion that we are going to destroy the world. Here I Am says, sim reality isn't different from virtual reality, same concepts. Yeah, I've studied simulation theory lately because it's been a subject of debate, and I've concluded that it's not a theory. It's a hypothesis, it's an idea, but it's not a theory. It's not falsifiable. And then what's more, it's a theological concept. It's a monotheistic metaphysical construct. So it's just another way of invoking God. And since we're on the topic, and I wasn't going to get too deep into it, but I want to bring this up because a number of people say the coincidences that you point out between the news and the entertainment are so complex that man could not have done that. They'll say, it must have been the result of a higher power. Man couldn't do that. That's just way too complicated. Are you saying that man scripts everything? People have these deflections and straw man representations of what we're saying because they are incredulous that man could be doing all of the predictive programming and fake news events and orchestrate it all. And what I'm saying here to that claim is that while simulation theory, and this is according to Nick Bostrom, is predicated on the idea that man builds the simulation and that we're living in it. So we're living in a simulation according to this theory, a simulation created by us. So if man can create a simulation and create you in that simulation and give you the illusion of autonomy and agency, then why couldn't man screw with the media in what is little more than just propaganda? So no, I really don't think we need to grasp at these far out supernatural explanations for something that's very simple. And this is not a new thing. This has been the go-to explanation since 9/11 truthers came out. And then you had this subset of people who were saying, well, the two towers symbolize this. It happened on this date and these numbers are there, so therefore that. And I've noticed all these things and I've talked about these things. And I said, look, it does appear to be the case that there are occult significances wired into these stories. There's also these narrative templates. So these are multifaceted stories, but the misdirection line here, I think, is simply that these events are being orchestrated by supernatural agencies. And why would that even matter? It matters because the introduction of a divine entity to explain what you can't explain would conceal the real explanation. It's like, well, God did it. Well, maybe not. Maybe there is a man behind the curtain. And what we have consistently found by looking is that you can find connections or correlations between the directors of various movies, the messaging they put in, and future fake events. So we've been noticing this, and I've described this class of writers and directors as metascriptors. So we're living in a news-bent reality. Our news is bent to favor the worldview as projected or broadcast by the worldview monopoly, which is what I would say it is. It's a monopoly. But it's comprised of really just not just fake news, but also all of the entertainment is conscripted for the same purpose. That's why there's very little difference. You can watch something on Netflix and you see it on the world stage. I watched The Madness, and then I watched the whole Luigi Mangione thing happen. I watched all the time. I say, if you want to see what's going to happen on the news tomorrow, watch Netflix today. And there's reasons for this, though. It has to do with our attention. And it's not a metaphysical, it's not a supernatural thing. It's not about, quote, loosh. It's about programming, post-hypnotic suggestion, selling you narratives. It's like advertising. These are covert influencers. These are like the perception management operations that Edward Bernays wrote about. So they're shaping world view all the time. And I would contend that Luigi got the response he did, and he became a hero so fast because he so closely approximated the Joker. And this is not an example of life imitating art. No, this is a psyop imitating art. And the art was created with the intention of saturating the public minds so that they would become predisposed to like this Luigi character or identify with them. So I'm suggesting here that the directors don't need to know the specific political utility of their propaganda, but they know they're doing propaganda. Another good example of this, and these examples are so mundane, so prosaic, that you can rule out supernatural causes. So, for example, when the Game of Thrones House of the Dragon came out, right when that movie came out, that series came out, the Roe v. Wade leak happened, and you had protests in the street because women's rights were being threatened. So you have the pro-abortion march. They're mad because of the whole Roe v. Wade being overturned. And then I turn on HBO, House of the Dragon, and the opening scene is the Queen dying during childbirth because it was a very barbaric situation, and they had to let her die to have the male child because the most powerful woman in the country was still just a broodmare for the state, and the male child had all the value. So that message about her lack of bodily autonomy and the barbarism of the men just deciding what to do with her like she was a barnyard animal, yeah, that was not a mere coincidence. It's what I call concerted messaging. And I have many more examples, and we have to come up with our own terminology at times. So concerted messaging or coincidences. A recent example was the unveiling of the 90-foot tall Onaman monkey god statue that was revealed out there in Houston, and how the timing of that monkey god corresponded perfectly with the video game Black Myth about the monkey god, which had a record-breaking 1 million plus people live stream playing at the same time in the role of that monkey god. At the same time, we had the monkey pox unleashed. The WHO declared it a national emergency, a global emergency. This was August 14th. And then on the same day, Apple Plus releases the movie with Vince Vaughn, Bad Monkey. This against the backdrop of HBO, Chimp Crazy. The lady has a chimp. Then you've got the Planet of the Apes. And then, of course, we were talking about the movie called Monkey Man, where this guy puts on the monkey god mask. And it was a Jordan Peele production, came out on 3/11. But anyway, I had a list of like a dozen or so instances of within a short span of time, the monkey god was just blasted everywhere, like a force meme. But connected with this video game, this 90-foot tall statue, I'm like, okay, are we looking at some remarkable coincidences, or are we looking at concerted messaging? And the answer is concerted messaging. And that's just one example. And I'm just sort of scratching the surface on it because there's an underlying meaning to the monkey god and this reoccurring theme of this rage virus. And by the way, the guy who wrote 28 Days Later about the apes, the chimps who are turned into violent psychopaths by watching violence on TV, the guy who wrote that is the director of Civil War, which we're about to live through, I think. So if you remember, in Civil War, the Trump character gets into the White House, and then they have to go take him out. And the people who aren't watching the news don't even seem to know there's a civil war going on. So they make a point in this movie of showing this discrepancy between those who pay attention and those who don't, and how you can have the luxury of not plugging in. In a way, it kind of made martyrs out of the journalists. Like they were out there suffering and experiencing the trauma for the rest of us, which is kind of funny, considering that they do have a level of separation, like they are actually experiencing it for us. But they're fabricating it. Like this is something else too. Reporters don't go to scenes to report. They're part of the production company. Copaesthetic says new monkey movie coming soon. Yeah, I think there's the Stephen King monkey. There's a Stephen King one that's coming out soon. Yeah, it is 2025. And Stephen King is very well represented in the canon of predictive programming. The Shining. The Shining has been looked at again and again by some people who have a very myopic view of it. And they'll say, oh, in The Shining, Stanley Kubrick was revealing that he worked on the Apollo 11. Like, okay, that's one take on it. But if you look at The Shining closer, you'll see that it has plenty of foreshadowing for 9/11. And Stanley Kubrick is a major league metascriptor. And there are some people who look at Kubrick like he's an anomaly. They look at Stanley Kubrick like he's the metascriptor. This guy was used to direct these he's a whistleblower. He's trying to tell us something. It's like, no, he's not a whistleblower. He's a mind controller. He's a top tier mind controller. He directed the JFK hoax assassination. But his movie, The Shining, has a lot of 9/11, a lot of COVID foreshadowing, weirdly enough. Like, that's how far ahead these things go. But in the Shining book, which is by Stephen King, there's a follow-up one called Dr. Sleep. So this is a sequel. And in Dr. Sleep, it has a psychic child who predicts 9/11. So even Stephen King's follow-up to The Shining has a 9/11 connection. But anyway, this is just typical with Stephen King. And I have a list of writers. Tom Clancy is another one. Directors, we have a long list of directors and writers and video games that are just propaganda vectors. Okay, so in February, The Monkey will be released, Stephen King adaptation. I haven't seen it. I don't know much about it. But the whole theme of it is that the monkey virus has been, or the monkey virus in the movie 20 Days Later has been kind of the main theme here. Nope, directed by Jordan Peele, has this killer chimp. And he says that movie was inspired by the George Floyd event, by the footage and then the reaction that it generated. The spectacle. So the broader point here is that the reason why the apes become violent is because they caught mind viruses by watching violence on TV. So the bigger point here is really about the mind virus. In the movie The Madness, that's what they were talking about. The madness referred to propaganda paid for by billionaires, spread through online influencers, online, specifically Nazis in the movie The Madness, that caused people to get very violent. So this idea of a mind virus being a threat to society. Well, here we are. We're at the place where we have now, as a society, we have accepted the existence of the thought crime. And so what's so pernicious and dangerous about these ones are that the mentally ill are susceptible to them. So we must quarantine so the mentally ill don't kill us all and don't shoot up places. And they've made radicalization. These terrorists got their ideology online. So these are, again, instances of people with the rage virus. So it's a mind virus. It's not a physical virus, it's in the mind. So they got the madness. So the madness, the rage virus, is disease X. Disease X was the placeholder name for the big one that the WHO said is coming. And when Twitter became X, I said, look, X is going to be the vector for the mind virus. And here we are, living through this. X is specifically going to be blamed for anything that happens from now on. Mike D is on mute. So if you want to call in, Mike D, the number's on the screen. I can't actually see your comments, but a lot of people are enjoying what you're having to say. So if you want to try to call in. Lloyd says, Tim, recall that we discussed this long ago, but our timing was way off. The ruling class always moves incrementally, at a pace more complicated and slower than analysts think. This is Lloyd Miller. Former false flagger. I think we fixed that. He said, I agree mostly that the two terror attacks were hoaxes, especially the incineration in front of Trump Tower. I'm more interested in policy or societal changes that they're aimed at. My hypothesis is that, as amplified by Alex Jones and similar alts, we're supposed to believe that Trump is mounting the presidency heroically in the face of deep state opposition, assassination attempts, false flag, and warmongering. In fact, he is now, if not from the beginning, scripted to be the president that breaks the resistance to vastly increased establishment tyranny, much like Nixon did after defeating the left at Kent State. So Trump is a Pied Piper into WEF-described digital tyranny, partly necessitated to combat the flood of illegal immigrants. Don't you know? Clearly, we need a digital ID, currency quick. Call Vance's high-tech sponsor Peter Thiel and Palantir. See Lord of the Rings. Okay, great comments by Lloyd Miller, and I am in agreement with you. Trump is the deep state. He was this whole time. You take off that mask, it's not JFK Jr., it's not JFK, it's not Jesus. Trump is the deep state. He's not your savior. What's up, old school days? Thank you for joining. Lean Dion says, the Trump bomber said Americans only respond to violence and spectacles in his manifesto. Can't wait to read his manifesto. I was still trying to catch up on his History Channel appearances. Like, all these individuals are just TV stars. It's like, how many times in a row have we seen terrorists or assassins who are interviewed by the BBC? They're known to the FBI. They've got IMDb's. No coincidences. Lickety Split says, first time I kind of agree with Lloyd. That's why I took note of this comment. I'm like, yeah, we kind of do agree about the big picture. And the thing in front of Trump Tower, yeah, of course, make it look like he's under some kind of an attack. But again, if the ear piercing was fake, then the Cybertruck melting or blowing up, that was all fake too. And his passport surviving, give me a break. It's kind of funny how Neo's passport has 9/11 in it. And 9/11 passports were such a big deal the first day because that's how they figured out who did it. Joe Santo. Oh, yeah, the painting behind me. I haven't finished it. But I have been leaning quite heavily into my artwork to cover bills, which is fine. My eBay store is up to about, I think, 1,300 art sales in the last 2 years. Most of them are small. Yeah, but the passport by the roasted truck, I like that. Nice touch. And again, let me get to this point here I was going to allude to, because we saw this the other day. Elon Musk quite literally predicted it. So here's something that someone else had alluded to. This is the Back to the Future fire and lightning on the DeLorean. Now here's a connection of it to the burning Cybertruck. And on that day, or the day before, you had the truck plowing through the crowd in New Orleans. and that was a lightning. And on that day, of course, you had lightning striking the Washington Monument, the Capitol, the Empire State Building. So we've got lightning, burning car. Again, we're just looking at the images that are being force memed out there. But before the event, and so this is the tweet I was referring to. This is 24 hours before. On December 30th, Elon Musk said, "Cybertruck looks like the future." And he has a picture here of a Cybertruck looking like it's about to explode. Like it's fire there. And he's tweeting somebody's tweet that says, "The Cybertruck is on fire." So the day before the Cybertruck burned in front of Trump Tower, he's retweeting something that said, "The Cybertruck's on fire, looks like the future." And the very next day, Cybertruck blows up. So is Musk a prophet? Oh, by the way, on the 3rd, it was the 22nd birthday of Kyle Rittenhouse and Greta Thunberg. 1-3, both born on January 3rd. I think they were yanked out of the vat on the same day. In the background there you have climate change and a riot going on. Two of my favorite crisis actors. I think it's just interesting here from the perspective of what they represent. These are the antipodes, these poles, these diametrically opposed characters that are like the poster children for the worst elements of each side. And they're equally annoying. But the fact that they have the same birthday is just kind of like revealing, if you ask me. Okay, moving on. Phones are open again, 505-510-4226. If you were convinced that Witsit Gets It was authentically showing his breath fogging up and that it wasn't a vape, call in. Vapegate is a legitimate thing. Vapegate is a legitimate question, but we're going to get answers tomorrow. So I'll be covering that debate after it happens. So this is interesting. So right after the drones, we had fog. And they said that the fog brought out a virus, which they called Fog Vid 24. Okay, look at this one. A photo of our New Orleans terrorist in his army uniform. So I want to point out a guardrail. One of the guardrails is terror attacks and mass shootings are carried out by mind-controlled assassins. So they're pointing out that Ryan Routh, that this guy, and the Cybertruck guy all went to Fort Bragg. And so they're associating Fort Bragg, military, mind control. These are all assassins. That's their go-to explanation. So what I'm pointing out here is that this guardrail explanation is how the right-wingers blame the government indirectly. They're saying, oh, the government mind control did it. But it's a guardrail narrative that prevents you from calling the thing fake. So it's more likely that Ryan Routh and Shama Dinjabar and the Cybertruck guy are actors than that they were actually terrorists, especially because the Cybertruck guy was quite literally an actor in a History Channel TV show. Old School Days says, I'm not sure Vapegate's a real thing. Jaren is too serious. I don't know. Again, I had to suspend judgment, but I've always found his ISS transits to be very questionable. I don't believe in the space station. And I think the lights in the sky thing is an interesting question in and of itself. You know how easy it was for people to believe that we're under a drone attack? It's very easy for people to just falsely claim that they've seen Starlink or they've seen satellites. It's always happening. And this was, of course, dramatic. When the Cybertruck exploded outside of Trump Tower, you have the tower there with the smoke on the bottom. So it does, in a way, serve as a PR stunt. It makes it look like Trump has opposition. That somebody wants to stop him and Musk. This is Machiavellian. Like, you almost have to read Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power and Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals just to know how screwed up these people are, because they do play mind games. the threat of the thing is worse than the thing, rule number 9. That's a significant one because most of the things that are held over our heads, like the fake nukes or the threat of World War III, never actually happen. But the threat of them is enough to keep people cowed. It's like, oh, we're super scared because they recently showed us the movie Oppenheimer, so it's fresh in our minds. And it's also disconcerting somewhat that people believe that there's drones coming around looking for a missing nuke, and then psychosomatically they come down with radiation sickness. All over New Jersey, they have radiation sickness. Old School Day says, I don't think space is real, but flat Earth needs a rethink. Here's what I'll say. Let's just say the whole thing was real. Let's just take that line of thinking. They go down there, they see a 24-hour sun. They have all the information they need to conclude that the Earth must therefore be a ball, 25K circumference. So you have established now the ball. We haven't established what it looks like from space because space travel has been invalidated. It's been falsified. Mainly because the space agencies are using special effects and science fiction narratives to make us think they're in space, but it's all just a movie. And I'm not just being dismissive. It's literally that. It's like heaven. The archaic concept of heaven does not appeal to atheists. And in our new progressive utopian worldview, they're phasing out the old religions. So space is a new heaven that all of the people of the world believe in. So they have that going for them already. This is nasatology. It is a religion. But given that we don't have that information and we can't say unequivocally what it looks like from space, we don't have enough information to conclude anything other than the globe model is the best, or rather answers these questions in the best way, but it's not a complete model in my view. We need more information. So you can suspend judgment if you wish. I'm going to suspend judgment until I know what's at the edge of the universe. Like they used to laugh at the people saying the earth is flat and they're like, well, what's at the edge? Well, what's at the edge of the universe? Until you can tell me what's at the edge of the universe and beyond, you don't have a complete model. And that's what they'll say. Well, where's your model? If the earth's flat, where's your model? I argue against the idea of formulating a model until you have, as far as like the big cosmography, until we have all the available information. And even then, a model's never settled. New information has to change it. So I'm still thinking about it, is what I'm saying. And if somebody has a problem with the fact that I'm still thinking about it, you have to keep in mind that the accepted model we have today is not something that was unanimously agreed upon and in the way it is right now. It wasn't like settled. And even now, it's not 100% settled, but it's a work in progress. Science is open-ended. It's meant to be skeptical. All right, we're joined by, look at this. We have Copacetic brought in a bucket full of blue wrenches. So Busy 56, Harry Growler, Donna Ivy, Dork City, and Lickety Split have all received the blue wrench. Matt X says, maybe I'm reaching, but the Cybertruck is a modern-day DeLorean, in my opinion. And in Back to the Future 2, without the DeLorean, Biff wouldn't have been brought down. Old School Day says, everything should be falsifiable. Yeah, exactly. So you could argue, though, just to get back to it, that a 24-hour sun in Antarctica falsifies the single sun, the single circuiting sun flat Earth model, because in that, Antarctica is a ring. And at no point would it be possible for the sun to remain visible on one section of the ring for a full 24 hours. So you could say that that particular concept has been falsified. But at the very beginning, it was an either-or fallacy. It was something of a false dichotomy. It doesn't have to be globe or this flat Earth model. I would say that the model argument is premature. We shouldn't be debating that until we have information. And my starting point is that I don't believe that we have been to space, because the agencies that present us with evidence of space have been consistently demonstrated to be confabulators, liars, hoaxers. They use special effects and magic tricks. And I also would argue that the entire space program is a propaganda mission. It's not about traveling to a distant paradise. It's not about becoming multiplanetary. It's about selling us on a world view. Like you think about how any religion has at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the road rather, it's like salvation, clearing the world, saving the world. The space program has that kind of thing attached to it. It's a utopianism. It's tied in with environmentalism. And it's certainly a heaven that even the atheists will believe in. So I think it's more of a religious construct than a legitimate agency designed to take us to some distant planet. So the space program is a con. The fact that the rockets are named after dead sun gods is not a coincidence. Like it's the same old religious, or I mean I say religious, but there's a worldview beneath it. Like it's pagan. NASA is pagan. It's an Egyptian mystery school. Like the rocket is quite literally an obelisk. It's an idol to the dead sun god they worship. So there you have it. It's a mystery school, and it has an exoteric and an esoteric, meaning the outsiders, the dumbed down profane, the sheeple, they're meant to take it literally. But the people who are on the inside, the ones who are apprised of the mission, may have a better understanding of what they're doing, that this is actually a religion. This is a cult for the entire world. And if you don't believe that we're in a global doomsday cult, well, then how do you explain the idea that we've all been conditioned to accept that the world's about to end? I mean, we live in a doomsday cult where planet-killing asteroids, mutually assured destruction because of World War III, and climate disaster are all existential threats. If these don't exist, then how is it different from any religion, which creates a God construct, a punishing God, some kind of divine retribution, an apocalypse? So the secular worldview has many different apocalypse scenarios. It's one of the main reasons for Netflix. They have to keep you in the state of it's all about to end. The threat of the thing is worse than the thing. And people are ready for it. They actually want it. They want alien invasions. They want fog vid. They want the whole thing. They want a resolution, a great awakening. That's what the QAnon movement was ultimately an expression of, I believe. A lot of people who had this dark conspiratorial version of reality, they wanted it to end. They wanted answers and the bad guys to be exposed. And that's what religions always promise. You know, we're the good guys, those are the bad guys, and we're going to win. Definitely a con. Okay, let's move on to my notes here. It's been a couple of days, so we're kind of catching up, and again, tomorrow they're going to be debating that final experiment, which they should rename it to "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Antarctica." By the way, if you're in Michigan, there's going to be large-scale dirty bomb drills performed in your area. And I recently read about this fake town in the Mojave where the military practices for civil war, with drone swarms, dirty bombs, and even fake news. Now, why would they be simulating something like this? It's interesting, too, to talk about, these various simulations and how when we first started looking into this stuff, and this is often noticed, you would find, and they're better at it now, but it used to be like, anytime there was a major psyop or a shooting, you would search the local ads and find crisis actor ads. We would find these things consistently, or drills being performed, and it's almost a guarantee. If there's a mass shooting event that makes the news nationally and has a big agenda attached to it, there was likely a drill going on next door. It's like a 1-for-1. And how many times are we looking at school shootings where they said, oh, we just had a drill on this? In fact, at that last shooting, there was a shooting like a month ago. And one of the witnesses said something about how they had just done a drill for it. Joe Santos says, very Wag the Dog. Yeah, if you haven't seen Wag the Dog, it's a must-watch. And Wag the Dog is a great example of this phenomenon. Here we have it. 1997, Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro. It's an English language idiom, the tail wagging the dog, used to indicate attention being diverted from something of greater importance. So wag the dog is about faking a war in order to distract from a scandal. And this movie came out just a day before the Lewinsky-Clinton scandal. And it had a subsequent event that corresponded with the movie. So here's the breakdown from Wikipedia. So the movie's about faking a war to distract things, and then it happens in real life. So it says here, it was released a month before the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal and the bombing of the pharmaceutical factory in Sudan by the Clinton administration. This prompted the media to draw comparisons between the film and reality. The comparison was also made in December when the administration initiated carpet bombing in Iraq, and again in 1999 when they intervened in the Kosovo War, and this was in Yugoslavia, which coincidentally bordered Albania. And the movie's about faking this war in Albania. So this thing is essentially a movie about how the public is dupeable because the special effects departments are able to fake things. In fact, they were showing in this movie the use of green screens and crisis actors. But the movie itself, about the faking of news, actually did contain elements of predicting or I'd say foreshadowing, but there's different ways of describing it. The term predictive programming is a little inaccurate because oftentimes it's concurrent, it's real time. What you see in the movies is related contemporaneously with something you see on the news. I mean, I watched Beetlejuice this summer. And in the scene where one of the characters is in the waiting room for the underworld, Donald Trump walks in. So Donald Trump is dead in that movie. And it's him, golden suit, flag pin lapel, appears to be a head wound. But it's dark. It's hard to tell exactly why he's dead. But the fact of it is, it's Donald Trump. And this movie came out shortly after the Trump shooting. So again, you're like, well, I tweeted Tim Burton about it, and I actually put screen caps from the movie, and X blocked that tweet on copyright grounds. Old School says Alex was right about Sandy Hook. No, Alex was not right about Sandy Hook at all. Alex Jones is an alternative media false flag conspiracy theorist. You know, standard stuff. He's the gold standard. He's good at what he does. But he's not an auto hoaxer. And he doesn't have a methodology that allows for that. So for him, everything on the news is either real or a false flag. There's nothing fake in his perspective, and it's by design. He's actually preventing people from reaching that conclusion. And the whole thing about this particular event is a red herring and a misdirection from hundreds of other events. I mean, there's a forest of fakery, and they focus on one fake tree from 15 years ago. Like, nobody cares. Like, I don't even think anybody cares about 9/11. In this sense, like when it comes to making our points, if you haven't figured out these ancient history events by now, or if you haven't figured out the big picture, you're likely not going to. And I know that people who believe the news think we're crazy because we're calling stuff fake. And I just want to say that's a non-skeptical position to automatically trust it. And I think that's the hard thing to confront, is that the scale of deception might be a little daunting for people to accept. And we're kind of cavalier about it, kind of flippant. Like, yeah, we're being lied to by every institution. Everybody's brainwashed. Everybody's programmed. Mass mind control. Just a daily part of my life. But it doesn't faze me anymore. I'm over it. When in human history have the masses not been programmed by one religion or another? What makes the mainstream media religion any different? And the purpose of it is what I'm interested in. And I think the purpose of our mass mediation, this worldview warfare, is how they are achieving world peace. I think this is the new world order. And we are in this chronic state of info war. And this info war facilitates peace. So war is peace. We do live in 1984. And this is likely the best we can hope for. And I don't think that's pessimistic. Like, I think we've been domesticated. I think we've been conquered. And I think we've been given a paradigm meant to constrain. We live in the village. If you haven't seen the movie The Village, it accurately explains the world and how it runs. It's one of the closest things to reality I've seen in the movies in terms of like a model. Yeah, Old School says 9/11's key. See, 9/11's okay, but the problem with it is that the scale of it is the thing people have a hard time grasping. And a lot of people say it was an inside job, but they still think people died. So if your take on it is that people died, you've been guardrailed. So Jones will say it was an inside job. Well, good. You're not buying into the mainstream. But that narrative, it's an inside job, steers to blaming who? Skull and Bone Society, Israel. So in any event, the event is still treated as real, just has a different scapegoat. And if you're still treating it as real, then you're not noticing the role of media and how it is, in fact, involved in producing these events. So the psyop entertainment complex is what I'm focused on exposing here. It's not the military-industrial complex. 9/11 is one tree in a forest of fakery, and it gets an inordinate amount of attention. 2020, we saw the effectiveness of the mass mind control machine and how effective, how perfect it is, in fact. Anybody who doesn't believe me that we've been conquered by a power elite wasn't paying attention in 2020. Everybody you know was turned into a zombie overnight. That's just pure ideological control. And they can push a button and they can change the movie set. They can change the scripts. And everybody, lockstep, NPC, goes along with it. All right, continuing here. Yeah, so I guess my point with that is you're not going to wake anybody up. You can't wake people. There's three groups of people that I look at here. You got the mainstream box, mainstream mediation, dream world, don't even pay attention. They're just kind of apathetic, focused on their own lives, and that's fine. And then people who think there's something more, they go into the conspiracy realm where they add on to the mainstream story. And I refer to that as MSM+, and that would be your conspiracy theorists or your wokesters. So they're buying the essential premise but adding on to it. So they believe 9/11 happened, but they also think it was direct energy weapons. They also think it was a different attacker. So they have a whole different storyline, a second shooter thing. But the third group would be the skeptics who are suggesting the entire thing was manufactured. So either it was real as presented, worse than as presented, or it didn't happen. And the didn't happen thing is a huge paradigm shift because we're redefining, or we're describing media as it is. And it's not what you've been told. It's simply the case that mass media is a tool of global government. It's about worldview. It's not about informing you. It's about conforming you. And this has always been the case. It wasn't like it was hijacked. And moreover, there's no meaningful separation between what you see in the news and what's happening in the entertainment. It's all part of a closed system, a fictional universe. And this is why we so often see the Batman universe and Batman movies being seemingly referenced in these major psyops. It's because they're using the movies as propaganda vectors. And they're using these stories to condition you and your responses to future fake news events. I mean, again, this is why the population that identified with Joker as a victim of society, killing the rich, that's why they identified with this Luigi character. They were pre-sold the story. Now, anybody in alt media operates on the premise that everything's real until proven fake. That's anti-skeptical. And at this point, you're wasting time with them. If you're not listening to people who start off with the premise that we should disbelieve by default, you're listening to people who are years behind. If they think people died at the Trump event and Trump faked it, they're years behind. They're not going to catch up. There's no guidance. There's no voice out there that's going to take people from the MSM and MSM plus worldview into skepticism. That's never going to happen. None of the big channels, big names are ever going to suddenly say, oh, by the way, this entire thing was staged. Because no, they're actually tied into the political system. I don't even waste time trying to discredit these very popular alt media types, because they're already, in my view, discredited by their poor judgment and discernment. Either they are operatives or they're fools. And you shouldn't be following fools, nor should you be following operatives. And if they don't know about the fundamental fakery involved, then they're not paying attention and their discernment sucks, or they're compromised and they're being paid to disguise it. So there's no excuse for following believers or alternative media believers. There really isn't. Not in 2025. So 2024, you kind of had an excuse, but not anymore. The election's over. All these individuals have been exposed as propagandists. AnkG says the Cybertruck Las Vegas guy had several manifestos. Yeah, and they copy each other's work. How many of these manifestos are just stealing someone else's? Like Brenton Tarrant was copying Anders Breivik, who I believed was copying Unabomber. Audrey Hale gave a shout out to the Littleton shooters. Old School says they think many steps ahead. Yeah, I would say they plan 50 years in advance at least. Like, my main thesis is this. There is a plan that goes 50 years into the future in big, broad strokes. Like, in 5 years, we'll be on Mars. In 10 years, climate change will do this. In 20 years, this will happen. So they have these changes planned out long in advance. But in order to steer history along that route, they have to have historic events. So in order for this country to go to war with this country, this event needs to happen. And how do they make that happen? Well, it's not going to happen organically. And so most truthers will say, well, they stimulate it. They do a false flag operation to steer events. Well, that doesn't give them enough control. These events aren't stimulated. They're not provoked. They are simulated. So January 6th, I have indications that January 6, 2001 was already planned to go down that way, and it was planned as far back as the 90s when they did the Waco siege. The Waco siege and January 6 are connected. It's part of the same story. So these stories also have, you'll see patterns, consistent characters involved. So for example, Waco. And Waco was alluded to when that individual on 419 set himself on fire outside of the Trump courthouse. Because if you remember, Trump started his campaign in Waco. And the day before he started his campaign, Netflix released Waco, American Apocalypse. About 1.6 million rounds. The ATF had to raid them, see if you're 1/6 connection. But Waco is where Alex Jones got radicalized. Waco is where Timothy McVeigh got radicalized. So these are not meaningless connections. So that was 4/19, 1993. And there's a lot coming up on Timothy McVeigh we'll have to get to. But the fact that Alex Jones was here at Waco, and then he was at 1/6, and then he has been primarily the driver behind the narrative of they're going to take your guns. That's the turning point. Then he goes on Piers Morgan, and he says DHS bought 1.6 million hollow point rounds. They're going to take our guns. And if they try, 1776 will happen again. So he alludes to 1.6 billion rounds. So again, Waco, 1.6 million. Then DHS, 1.6 billion rounds. This is Alex Jones, who then is there at 1/6. And he got sued for 1.5 billion. Should have been 1.6. But the point here is that it's the same actor. So the Waco story and the rise of domestic terrorism on the right with Timothy McVeigh and then how it evolved, this has been a long-term story. And it's just now coming into fruition. So I mentioned that movie, The Madness. Well, The Madness is actually about what's happening now. And in the show The Madness, the corresponding character to Elon Musk is killed. He's the evil CEO who is said to have stolen the election and financed right-wing Nazis. So that sounds exactly like the types of things they say about Elon Musk. And in fact, in recent months, people have been showing direct connections between Musk and various influencers and internet Nazis on his own platform. So this is not life following art. This is the psyops predicated on all the predictive programming and media entertainment. A couple of things here. Okay, here we go. This is... Oh, one more thing. The guy who set himself on fire on 4/19, that was Maxwell Azrello. The significance there, he had a manifesto. So speaking of manifestos, Maxwell Azrello had a manifesto about how the rich people, the fascists, are taking over. And he said that it was both Clinton and Trump were on the same team. So this was a guy saying it's class war, kill the rich. That's what his thing was. And that mirrors the Joker, kill the rich. That mirrors the Luigi Mangione thing. So does anybody else have this memory? I remember Nelson Mandela had braces when Ed McMahon gave him that $1 million Publishers Clearinghouse checks. Is this your memory? You know what's interesting about this, though, is that the Mandela affected will say, I have this memory. And they're not lying. They're not lying when they remember that Nelson Mandela had braces. But it's not an authentic memory, meaning that when they were asked, do you remember Nelson Mandela having braces? When they think about their memory of Nelson Mandela, they're simultaneously imagining that he has braces. And that prompted vision in their head, that imagining, becomes a memory. Because you remember the things you imagine. I was thinking about this lately, how I'm reading this book that I tried to read like 5 years ago, and I put it down, and I forgot about it. So I find the same book, and I kind of forgot that I'd read it. And within 5 minutes of reading this book, I remembered the scene. Not the words, but I remembered the scene, the substance of it. The little crab creatures with the razor claws tearing people in the bar up. And I was like, okay, I've been here before. So, in other words, the prompted visualizations from the imaginings that were prompted when I read the book stuck with me as a memory. This is how false memories are created, because you wouldn't call those memories because I only imagined them. Yet, I can recall them because I read them and stored them as essentially memories. So what's happening with the Mandela effect is you're getting people to file away things you get them to think of as though they were memories. It is an incredible hoax. It's a psyop. And this is what explains what the Innocence Project is trying to stop. People being arrested because of faulty eyewitness testimony. Faulty eyewitness testimony can be planted there by the police, by the interrogators. How many of you remember this? This is Nelson Mandela and Lassie at the bottom of the well. Everybody knows. Kevin Mooring says, Tim, did you see the TikTok video where a girl says we don't die, we go to a parallel universe, that's why there's the Mandela effect and it's happening? That's an interesting idea. I've seen something like that in Black Mirror. And I like the idea of death being a hoax and somehow escaping or somehow, yeah, I guess you could say escaping, but some people believe the Mandela effect means that you're breaking free, that you're seeing the glitches, and the end result will be spiritual illumination, transcendence. But again, just to be clear, to be fair to them, the Mandela affected are not liars. If you believe Timmy fell down the well, you're not lying. You're a victim of false memory syndrome, and it was planted there by a government operative or somebody trained by one or just somebody who picked it up. But it's a active measure. I do believe that this is a known technique for screwing with people's perceptions and memories. And I think it's being done on purpose. It's sabotage. And so it also means that Mandela effect is not evidence of anything. Okay, next one here. Let me play this clip. This is Phil Schneider. He says that there are like 9 species of aliens, and they view us as food, but they don't want to eat your flesh. They just want your pineal glands.
Now, I'm going to tell you something a little bit different about the alien species. The bad news ones, there are 9 races of alien populations that look at a human being as a bag of food. They're not cannibals. They don't eat the flesh and the bones and all that kind of stuff. They use the glandular secretions of animals and human beings as a mixture of the vitamins for their food. They get high off of our adrenal gland. So,
I mean, that story goes back a long time. And there's a movie called Sputnik that came out in August of 2020 from Russia, the same month that Sputnik 5 vaccine came out. And it's about cosmonauts coming back down to Earth with these aliens that live inside of their esophaguses. And it's like a symbiotic relationship. And they come out in their full form at night. And they scare their victims. Because they feed off of the fear, the stress hormones. Okay, here's the video someone mentioned. I think Copacetic brought it up. FBI has another video of New Orleans suspect planning his attack with Meta glasses. So I've been hearing certain narratives popping up like rental cars are now bad, car rental apps. They're just describing the different ways that these things are dangerous for society. But here is the terrorist. He looks kind of like the Riddler guy. Like the glasses thing. Riddler, Thomas Crooks. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, it's Nick Finger.
Hey, what's up, Nick Finger? How's your new year starting so far?
It's all right, just working. I work in hospitality, so holidays are same as any other type of year except busier.
Right, I get that. Cool. Well, so far it's been an interesting year. Any specific takes here? I mean, we've been talking about a few different things.
I just got off of work, so I don't know if you guys have already been talking about the final experiment, but I don't know. I just wanted to throw my take out there, like after listening to Witsit and Jaron, and I feel like that. I don't think that they're lying. I feel like that they went to Antarctica, and that my gut says that the sun went around them. I've seen some interesting ways on which that could happen on a plane, but all the Vapegate and footprint gate and all that kind of stuff, like that just seems to be adding noise to it.
Interesting. Well, I'm totally, look, if everyone said, hey, let's just go with the ball until one of us can make it to Antarctica, it wouldn't make a difference. Because we're still fundamentally examining mass media deception at large. We're not specifically focused on the ball Earth model, even though we are specifically focused on NASA and SpaceX and all the others. So it doesn't really change my trajectory in any way, one way or the other. But it would seem to be a refutation of the biblical flat Earth. And it also says there's no reason to have a model until you've done more research anyway. But anyway, I'm glad to hear your take on it. I'm still waiting. I'm waiting till tomorrow's debate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, I don't know what all the information means, but my gut is telling me that they actually went down there. They weren't in the sphere. They weren't, I mean, I hear some people saying, "Oh, you could have recorded that in Alaska," which is BS because it would have to be 6 months ago in Alaska for that to be the case.
Well, do you agree with me on this? Do you agree with me that if it was faked, it would necessarily have been a NASA psyop?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be a NASA level psyop.
If it was faked,
If it was,
no, I mean, not NASA level, NASA would have been behind it specifically.
I mean, that stands to reason.
I would
They're
say
the
so.
ones that
Yep.
they're the ones that are putting out all the giant level fakes. But I mean, there's other psyops that we don't necessarily name NASA as the one. You know, the school shootings. We're not saying NASA did it.
Well, but my point here is this.
I like your take.
My point is that this final experiment would not have been done by Will Duffy and Mick Toon and Jaron and Whitsett. Like, hey, let's go down here and do this. No, if it was done for the purposes of deceiving people, it would have been a NASA psyop just as much as the next moon landing will be. And if it's NASA, then what is their budget? What are their capabilities? If they can fake a rover on Mars, if they can fake a moon landing, if they can fake a space station for 20 years, is it beyond their capability? So my main question is it fakeable? And if the answer is yes, then we have to rule out that first. If it's no, the evidence there is overwhelmingly in favor of it not being a movie set, then we can just move on. So I'm still waiting to get past the fakeability aspect of it. Is it fakeable? And
okay, well, I did notice, I haven't watched it. I don't know if I will watch it, but I did notice that Jaron dropped it's a 5 or 6 hour long video, and it's all the footage on the plane from Punta Arenas to Antarctica, out the windows, landing there. So, I mean, not to say that it would be necessarily unfakeable, but like, I mean, it looks like they're on a plane filming out of a window. I mean, I've only seen little bits of it so far, but I mean,
see, that stands to reason. That stands to reason, however, that if they are faking a trip to the moon, they're going to fake the trip to the rocket, the whole journey to the moon. So the entire thing, start to finish, would necessarily have been staged. And so if you look at it from the context of it being a movie, all of this can be explained. But I'll have to watch the footage myself. I didn't see the 6 hour flight. So I'll have to see that. And then go ahead.
Jaron had he's got his show that he calls Speaker's Corner, where people call in and they got 4 minutes to say whatever they want. He did that a couple nights ago, and it ended up being a 10-hour show. I've listened to some of it. When it first started, I was posting it on your members only video saying that I'd like to hear you call in, and
I'll do it. I'll call in. I'll be happy to, because the skepticism's warranted, but it needs to lead to something. We need to get an answer, something conclusive. And if I could find something conclusive, I will hold it up there and I'll say, hey, look, this is conclusive.
And I also, I mean, I hear the frustration in these guys' voices. I mean, for a second, let's take it at face value that these are two guys. Like, I mean, I know you're what you think about Jaron and the transits and all of that, but let's just say at face value, these are two guys that are kind of well thought of as leaders in the flat earth movement. And so just imagine at face value that they're going down there. They want to find out, and they're going down to Antarctica, and they got this opportunity of a lifetime. Somebody's paying for them to go down there, and they go down there, and they get back, and everybody, and they see what they saw, and they get back, and everybody in the community is like calling them liars and shills and everything like that. So it's like, I mean, I can see it from both perspectives for sure, But like, is there anything that they could have shown or did while they were down there, if they were down there, that would have, proven to quote unquote truthers that they were actually there and saw what they saw?
Yeah, okay, see, this is where you get to a good point, because we have to avoid moving goalposts. They can't say this would fundamentally alter my view and then retract it. But one thing I find that this is the reason why there's even questions. Because, yeah, I understand how they go through all the effort, they spend all the money, and we're just like, no, we don't accept it. Like, no, that's not fair. We have to give it a fair shake. We have to actually look at everything. You can't just, and I think it's premature, to say it's all fake. We need to go through it case by case, but there are questions. Like, so here's a question. When Jaron first gets down, he's walking around and he's pointing at a mountain and he's laughing, saying, it looks like I could touch it, but it's 12 miles away. He just says the same thing for a glacier. I live 6 miles from the Sandia Mountains. It's a 10,500 foot peak. I've never felt like I could reach out and just touch it, ever.
And, maybe they, I can see both perspectives, that they were in the Amazon movie set and he was saying that tongue in cheek because he almost could touch it. I could also see it as he's in this environment that he's never been in before. The atmosphere is different. There's hardly any moisture at all in the air. It's very cold. And the things that are far away look close up because it's just bright. To me, it seemed brighter than any environment I've ever been.
Is there
reflection off the ice.
Are there reports that, hey, in Antarctica, because of the specific climate and the dry air, mountains that are miles away will look closer, so pack accordingly? Like, I've never heard anybody talk about how distant objects look closer when you're in Antarctica.
Honestly, I've never really heard any people speaking that have been down there.
But look, he wasn't the only one who said this. Someone else said it. I think it was, might have been Duffy or might have been one of the others. They said the same thing about how those and they laughed while they said it. So I have the video clip here. So I'm just saying it's a little weird that somebody would laughingly call distant objects funny because they seem so close you could touch it. And it's like, wait a minute here. Are you in a movie set? And from where you're at, you can tell it's fake, but on camera it looks real and it's kind of funny. I got Duper's Delight vibes. That's what I got. So the whole thing, that's why I started off saying that should not have been a statement. He should not have said that. If he was really there, I don't think he would have suggested that these distant mountains are, quote, right there. It's a strange thing. I don't know how to explain it, but that's one of the reasons why people are asking questions.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And like I said, I can see it from both perspectives. And,
Wait. Grey Duck says, Boonville salt flats are deceiving. The mountains a few miles away are 30 miles away. See, I haven't heard that, so I'll have to look into it. That might be an effect I've never heard of. So that is interesting.
And I don't think they were 12 miles away. I think that that I remember them saying that they were just like 3 or 4 miles away.
Do you have Vapegate? Vapegate's the big one. Can you at least explain why Vapegate doesn't trouble you?
Well, I feel that the response that Whitsitt gave to that is satisfactory to me. That okay, some people he makes it a point to not cuss on his streams, to not drink or smoke on his streams, because he wants his streams to be able to be watched by children, I think, is what I've gathered from things that he said over the years. And so what he said is that while he had a bag that had all of these battery backup and everything for his cameras, and that he used to vape, that he doesn't anymore, but that he found an old vape in that battery bag while he was down there, and that he hit it a few times.
How do you smuggle a vape pen to Antarctica? Like, I didn't think it was possible to bring contraband to Antarctica. I thought they had a list of banned items.
I don't think it was tobacco. It was nicotine. But that he didn't even know that was, according to him, he didn't know that was in his bag until after he got down there, and he hadn't slept in days, and he hit that a few times. But what he says is that he would never exhale that on a stream, and that the whoever started the Vapegate thing deceptively edited the video, because they had like the time lapse, going from the 24-hour thing, that was edited to make it look like that.
Okay, here's what convinced me.
Down, hit the
they had to leave early because they said the weather coming in was so bad that they would have been stuck through Christmas. I want to see video of the storm that was whipping at the sides of the tents. I want to see this Antarctic storm. Do they have video of that?
He said they have some video of that. So with it says that he's got a non-time lapse 25-hour video from his 360 camera, and I've seen a few little parts that he showed on a stream, but that the problem is that it's like over a terabyte, this 25-hour long 360 camera video. So the 360 camera, it's not rotating. It's got two 180 cameras on both sides.
Okay, that's what I need.
Showing
to answer your question, that's what I need to see. You said, what do I need to be convinced? I need to see that. I need to see the storm footage, and then I think I'll be good.
It's all coming. What he said is that it took 16 hours in. He's tried to, with a video, I don't know much about uploading onto, sites like YouTube or whatever, but cause he's been on Discord a lot.
Sure.
He's been just answering questions.
Look, he also said he said he quit vaping, but then he vaped that pen when he had it, and so that's fine. Do you think that Witsit Gets It is going to never vape again because of Vapegate, regardless of the outcome of the debate?
To me, that's completely irrelevant. And so is that he found a vape pen, whether he meant to bring it or not, whether he was trying to vape because he was away from the kids and wife for the week or whatever. Like, that's all irrelevant to me. Like, that doesn't.
Okay, this is coming. Candace Owens had a film crew doing a show for Netflix. So this is what I would say. We have to wait for that, because if you're in a set, if you're just walking around randomly recording different angles, you're going to give it away. There's not going to be any parallax. You're going to screw up. You're going to show something that shouldn't be there. So I don't think it's... so it would have to be carefully...
With the 360 camera, there isn't parallax because it's not actually rotating. You're just able to move around. You're able to look around within the picture of a 360 camera.
Now, what do you know about the static camera at Union Glacier that was recording the same time, that has a time lapse that shows
say that. I haven't looked into it myself. I don't think you have either.
I'm trying to get that flatzoid. I'm trying to get, so if anybody knows about this, there's a static camera from Union Glacier on the day they were there recording that showed an overcast sky, which contradicts their clear skies. So we need to also look at that. So the reason why I'm suspending judgment is I've got 5 or 6 questions that need to be answered first. N.A. Literalist had a suggestion here. I want to see what you think. Do you think it's possible that at the end of the Earth are massive LED screens holding the oceans in, and it's not an ice wall? It's like a wall of screens.
I don't care to speculate on that. It's unknown to me.
Okay, well, I appreciate your take, and I'm glad that we have someone here who's in the group of they're accepting the evidence, and that's fine. I'm
not saying that I'm not saying, I'm saying that it's plausible to me. Like,
Okay,
and that there's nothing that, like, I don't think that there's any video evidence that, like, what I'm saying is, like, I can move forward saying that I've seen the things that I've seen that make me feel like we don't live on a spinning space ball. And, you know, now this is just another piece of possible evidence. You know, it confuses things a little bit in some people's books, but, like, you know, I don't know.
Hey, if it was a ball, it'd be easy. If they could just prove it right now, we could say, okay, everybody here who's been focused on being skeptical about the shape of the world, that's a huge pool of researchers. It's like now you can turn your attention to what matters. So I would think it to be a good thing. If anything, the question is wasting time. It's a cul-de-sac. It's not leading to anything. So this data point, if that's all it is, it's more than that. It means that we can move forward. So the shape of the world being conceived of as a ball doesn't change the fact that we're confronting monolithic lying media. So, you know, I'm happy with it either way. I'm not biased, to be honest.
Well, the ground is flat. The sky seems to act like it's a sphere.
You know, interestingly,
but
the Chinese cosmology up until like the 1700s was a flat, square world with a celestial sphere. So anybody who says, oh, everybody knew the world was a ball for 2,000 years, or ancient Greeks, it's like, well, somebody didn't tell the Chinese until, you know, more recently.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking my call.
Yeah, appreciate it very much. And this debate should be settled soon. There's a debate tomorrow, so we'll do a follow-up. Thanks for the call.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
I'm glad this happened because it brought up the question of fakeability, and as a result of this event, whether or not it's real, everybody who's been looking is now well aware of these massive LED screens. These completely fabricated environments, virtual sets that can fake anything. And how do they fake the sun when they're doing the spacewalks? It's like some kind of a light. So if you were to, like, let's say we were going to fake this. If I was going to go fake a 24-hour sun, I don't think it would be that difficult. If you have an LED screen, I think they have, I think it's all, if it's all a movie, if that's your premise. Kevin Mooring says, Russian vid says the flat earth conspiracy started because 9/11 was getting stale. That might explain why he got into it. Because the 9/11 thing was going nowhere. And the flat earth kind of promised kind of a major fundamental shift. Because if true, it had the most wide-ranging implications. But getting attached to a model prematurely and then finding evidence that supports it and ignoring evidence that doesn't support it, yeah, that's pretty much a formula for self-deception. And then people get married to their wrong answers. Infinite Plane Radio.
What's up, IPS? Everybody in the chat, what's going on?
Hey, thanks for calling. So, anything changed with you? Are you still on team fake, or are you giving them a little more credibility now that we've had some time?
Oh yeah, it is. It's still team fake, man. They're faking it all the way. I posted a comment earlier about, like, hey, if you were to vape in Antarctica, wouldn't that kind of hurt? Wouldn't that cause you like some type of physical damage? Like if you were, or to even smoke a cigarette in Antarctica, like literally think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's Antarctica, bro. Like if you were to smoke, you would have to do it inside, or you would have to do it inside and not be exposed to elements, because like even that smoke inhalation in that, like, you know, that degree temperature that's in Antarctica, like what are we talking about? Like, you know, 10 degrees, 12 degrees, -2 degrees. Like, is anybody even vaping outside knowing that they could damage themselves internally if they actually did that?
Interesting
You
point.
know what I mean? Does
Sure.
that make any sense? Like, why would you even vape in Antarctica outside in the open? That doesn't make any sense. Like,
from what I saw,
possibly before you.
the weather was nice. They were taking their shirts off. Their ears weren't red. There was no wind, and the skies were clear. So it looked like a nice day in Antarctica, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, for a polar bear or a seal, because they're used to that. We're talking about like average human beings going to Antarctica. You know, like how much debriefing you have to get before like going to like a new country or like.
Well, it was 55
or, like,
degrees.
just,
It's summer there, so it's 55 degrees. They're saying. So there's that. But regardless, I'm waiting. I want to see video of the storm. I want to see the storm, and I want to see. I was hoping to see some penguins, but after tomorrow's debate, I will make a decision as to whether or not I believe it's true.
Actually, I'm kind of in the dark. Who is debating what?
Well, Fight the Flat Earth is debating some guy named Steve as to whether the final experiment was fake.
And of course he would be, but he can't answer shit about eclipses now, can he? No, he can't. Yeah, I mean, shit, the last time that I debated him, like, freaking, I waited like 2 weeks for him to post a video of the moon going across the sun that wasn't, you know, edited or CGI or anything like that. And he still didn't even post it, even after the debate. Like he said, I'm going to post this on my Facebook showing you that, yeah, the moon does go in front of the sun. And he never did. Never did, because that's not what you fucking see now, is it? No, it's not.
I don't know. I don't know on that one in particular. I just know that these individuals that we're talking about anyway, they think the news is real. So their opinions don't really matter to me anyhow. But the debate is called Fight the Flat Earth versus Steve. Was the final experiment fake? It's tomorrow, so I'm going to put a link in the chat. So if you want to watch this.
Well, another thing too is to not let his English demeanor get in the way of anything. You know what I mean? You know, if that's even how they talk or whatever. Like, dude, no remorse for any of this crap. Like,
but then wait, explain this to me. If this was fake, then what does that say about McToon? Is McToon a flat earther covering it up, or is he like? How does that work?
Actually, I might need you to explain McToon to me.
McToon is like Fight the Flat Earth, just a little bit, like kind of the same thing. They're just basically arguing the same points. They know each other. In fact, they started their YouTube channel on the same day, and they didn't even know each other.
Oh wow, what a coinky dink. well, just to that, it just kind of sounds like Fight the Flat Earth without the English accent.
Yes,
so
but
probably just a little bit anyway.
But he went to Antarctica in this, or supposedly. So if it was fake, then what does this make McToon? Does it mean that he's secretly a flat earther? What does it make? So that's the part I'm trying to get at here. Like, how does it make sense that somebody like McToon would be involved in the hoax?
I mean, for that, anybody can be involved in the hoax of it all, whether whether you know the Earth is flat and you're just going along with it.
Okay, yeah, fair point. Fair point.
Over, like, Fight the Flat Earth, but I don't even know, man. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, like, in some ways, I think Fight the Flat Earth, like, knows he's done been beat on every level freaking possible, especially with eclipses, because I was there for that. Like, I stomped the dog shit out of him with eclipses, and it's just like...
These guys are MSM. These guys, they're not conspiracy theorists. They're mainstream media believers. So, like, that's why I say their perspectives don't matter to me, because they don't know the news is fake. So, of course, they're not going to know the space news is fake. They're really in the box. They're useful for studying, but yeah, their opinions ultimately don't matter to me.
Well, I think like, you know, if you sat them down in a chair and had something that could like pry open their eyes to like watch a video screen, and you know, there was that who was that channel? It was the NASA Clown Show. Like, for a while there, that all they did was just like post videos of literally all the fuck ups that NASA had, like the grabbing of the wires, the CGI, the bubbles that came in and out, the disappearing people, and all of that. It's just like, what if you actually, got Fight the Flat Earth to sit down and open up his eyes and look at all this shit? Like, what would he actually say?
I've done it.
Like,
I've done it. I've done it. I've done it with both of them. They do not acknowledge it. So that's what I'm saying. Their opinions are worthless. They do not acknowledge the existence of special effects. It would be like if journalists didn't acknowledge the existence of lies, because we're talking about visual lies. And if you can't include in your assessment of news the possibility there's some visual lies thrown in there, then your perspectives don't matter to me because they're too blinkered. And that's where they are. They're myopic. So again, like I said, their opinions don't matter. I got another caller coming in here in just a minute here.
Oh well, I guess before I get off, it was like a stream, I guess, like two years ago. Like I was on a Verse Sanchez's platform where we were analyzing the video footage of the bubbles and stuff in space, probably at the same time I think that you were, man. But then we literally got to thinking, like, okay, liquid in space, but what about people's bodies? If that's the way that the liquid is reacting, then what about all the liquids in your body? Like, what are your eyeballs doing? What is your blood doing? Does your heart pump the same way? Like, how does any of that even work in 0G if that's what the bubble is doing? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if the bubble,
okay, I see.
If the bubble is globulating all over the place, then what about your eyes? Shit, what about your heart? What about your liver? What about any of the intestines on the inside of your body if you're in 0G? If that's what the liquid is doing in 0G, how are you even in one form in 0G? If that's the physics of what they're trying to present to you as real. Do you see what I'm saying? But anyways, I'm going to hop off, man.
Okay, interesting questions. Thanks for the time, and have a great evening. Okay, I'm now in Discord. Looks like we have a couple of people. Hey, what's up, caller in Discord? Can you hear me okay?
Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, so about the final experiment, there's an angle that needs to be addressed as well. And it's something, okay, we've all seen the footage and, everything that looks suspicious. And to me, it's enough evidence of fakery. That's me personally. But regardless of that, I mean, if it was me, you, and a few people here on the IPS going on this journey, we are aware of how fakery works. We are aware of the methods of fakery, right? We would take the responsibility, we would be aware of the responsibility of what we were trying to prove, that we were there, that we were genuine, that we were, actually conducting the experience or the experiment that we set out to do, and we would leave no margin, zero margin for any debate. And if people would ask us to stand on our heads to show that we were Antarctica, we would do our best to stand on our heads, right? So the thing that I'm trying to convey is they left, and to me it's fake. But even if it wasn't, they didn't take enough responsibility along with them in this experiment. And so now they're all emotional about people not believing them when they know how fakery works. They have been exposing fakery. They have been around this community of people who are fed up with these kinds of liars and fakers. And now clearly they became liars and fakers, or maybe they were, always liars and fakers. Because listen, I wasn't there, but you've been to physical flat earth conferences back in the day, right? And do you think that those flat earthers actually needed to believe what they were selling? That's not necessary. They were selling a product that they were given to sell, right? And as you've well stated, these were people recruited from the worst of society, among criminals, among, people who probably would, spend the rest of their lives in prison, and their way out was to probably take a role like this. And I'm not saying that Jaron or Whitsitt or whatever are criminals. What I'm saying is that the compartmentalization does not require them to believe or not believe in what they're selling. You're as a crisis actor, as they well know, as these people well know, being in the community, a crisis actor doesn't need to believe or know anything else beyond the script he is given, right? And they left too much to be debated for something that was supposed to be the final, the telltale sign of whether it's this or that. So this angle has to be addressed. If these people were from actually the research community, whether they were on the globe side or the flat earth side or the whatever side, they would have to be responsible. They would have to do their utmost to leave no margin for debate. You understand? So
Yes.
that shows to me as well, apart from the footage, it shows to me as well that this is fake and that they were compromised, or from the beginning, they were already compromised.
Lean Dion says, it's fairly straightforward if genuine. There shouldn't have been any anomalies. Yeah, if you told me, I need you to go out into the woods or go to this place out in the wilderness and bring it back on video, there's no way that what I come back with would look fake. Like, how do you make it look fake? How do you not just depict reality if all you're doing is documenting it? So why are there anomalies in the first place?
Precisely. Exactly. Why are there anomalies? And these people know. I mean, he knew when he did the breath thing, he knew that this was an anomaly. He knew that this was going to be talked about. You could see it in his expression. As he was doing it, oh, there you go, I'm in Antarctica. You immediately saw that he fucked up.
It reminded me of...
You immediately knew.
It reminded me of CNN reporters who are like, oh, we hear the Scud missile going off, put on your gas mask, and the cameraman's not moving, so he's not masking up, where you catch them acting like, oh, they're leaning into the wind, and like, oh, it's a hurricane. And it's like, well, the people in the back are just walking just fine with their dog. So I got the impression that he was acting. I did get that, and that's his fault.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to convey is beyond what we see in the footage and all the incongruencies and all that, is that this, at the very least, let's imagine that all the footage is real and everything. Okay. At the very least, this was highly irresponsible from them. They didn't take this seriously. At the very least, to me, it's not that. To me, it's that it's fake and they were caught and they were compromised. Right. That seems clear to me from what I've seen. But if it's like, I repeat that, if it was me, you, and a few people, select people, that hang around the IPS to go there, we would leave no margin for error. We would, take onto us the responsibility of, showing the actual, as uninterrupted, as undeniable proof that we were there. And this was not done. There's too many incongruencies, too many stuff that anomalies, like you said, for it to be taken seriously. At the very least, but to me, it's fake.
Now,
from what I've seen.
Do you agree with my contention here that if it was faked, it would necessarily have to be a NASA project because it's related to the whole space program?
Of course. Of course, given the budget that would be necessary to set up, for example, an all-encompassing screen or whatever it's called.
Exactly, because if you look into it, look, the sun never set on Arctic Mars simulation. You have simulation habitats all over the place. I'm always reading about these things where NASA has these simulated year-long Mars missions, and now I'm interested in trying to find out how are they simulating the sun for the people in these things. So I'm digging into it, but most of NASA's money, I guess you could say all of it, is spent on simulations. And even in the... Yep, so it's all simulations anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's and again, I say these people do not need to believe. They do not. I mean, okay, you followed their channel for an amount of years, and you've grown used to, a certain position from them, and so on and so forth, right? But they do not need, if they're selling a product, they do not need to actually believe. They only need to play it out, to play out a certain character. And it seems to be the case here, you know. There's too much margin for debate, and they even knew that they were caught out. You could see in their expression that that you usually see the duper's delight. In this case, with the fooler's delight, or not the delight, but like the fooler's frown or something like that. Like, ooh, that was
Well, you
because they
notice
know
they're doing
how it
shame.
works.
Like, I think something too, since they know it's not self-evident, I think one of their tactics is to use shame against those who are questioning.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you? It's disgusting. How dare you question this person's integrity? And that kind of tactic is an emotional appeal. And I think it's used to
Yes.
turn the community against you, outgroup you. That's not part of the scientific method, trying to generate a consensus belief. It's the opposite, in fact. In fact, in a
At all.
scientific
At all.
context, you have
At
to
all.
listen. You're supposed to listen to the guys that don't agree. So they're doing it wrong by using the shame tack, and that's a red flag.
At all. And like I told you, if it was me, you, and people from the IPS, we would be expecting that people would test us to the bone, test what we were claiming or showing or whatever to the bone. They would dissect those images to the bone, because that's what we do, right? That's what we've grown accustomed to do. That's how we dissect and do with everything, and that's how we figure out the methods used. So, and being blunt and honest, and with all due respect with the previous caller, towards the previous caller, I don't care about feelings. I don't care if they feel, betrayed or down, or, the emotional. I don't care. What they went there to discover truth, supposedly, right? That was the whole intent, not to, be pampered towards their feelings because now they, someone says that it's, or a lot of people say it's fake, right? It is expected that it's dissected. That is exactly what brought us here. The pursuit of truth requires that you let go of, an emotional attachment to something, right? If you're a flat earther and you go there and it's, for some reason, it's proven it's a globe, you have to let go of that emotional attachment. Same way, if you're a globe earther and you go there and it's proven that it's flat, you have to let go of that emotional attachment, right? It has to be 100% based on the actual observation and the actual experience, and as leaving as little margin as possible. And this was not done. And this is, again, a telltale sign that this was entirely scripted and lousily performed, I would say.
Well,
it was performed in a lousy manner.
Well, Jaron was calling people in his chat names, impugning their intellect, saying there's something wrong with them, essentially, R-worded, just for questioning this. It's like, why not just call us conspiracy theorists? Jaron should just say, hey, all you flat earther conspiracy theorists, hoaxers who don't believe in this, should just shut your mouths. Like, he's sounding like CNN at this point, taking that perspective of, if you don't trust us on faith, you're therefore a bad person. And again, that's a huge red flag. Honest people don't have to do that.
Of course. I mean, don't trust, I don't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson, but trust Jaron or trust Witsit or whatever. What's the difference? There's no difference. There's no difference. Both will be going through the same analysis. And you would be going through the same analysis if you went there. And it would be implacable analysis, and you would be questioned on any little anomaly that was found, right? Like you were questioned with Mad Mike.
Yeah,
and you continue to be questioned.
And I have no problems. Like let's say they say it's a ball. It doesn't end what I'm doing here. Like, I don't have anything invested in it. There are people who are invested in the model, like the app guy, whatever, the Fed, but I don't have any particular vested interest in it. And if they could just say, hey, look, it's a ball, I'm like, cool. Now science fiction is that much cooler. It wouldn't change my life, but it would allow us to move on and focus on media fakery deconstruction. So I'm hoping to get this question solved. I'm not interested in delaying this. So we're not reality denialists, but we're not going to let go of our skepticism because of some misguided loyalty. So I'm glad we're on the same sheet there, because that's the only thing they have is loyalty. Trust. Trust Fauci. Trust Jaron. Trust Witsit.
Correct. And that's what causes what you correctly name autobelief. What causes autobelief is misguided trust. It's because trust is earned over a period of time of you're tested several times, or there's something that makes you trust. If all you see is doubt, how are you going to trust? How are you going to put your trust in that, right?
Okay, here's a question.
Is like
really quick here, because we're seeing videos, right? We're seeing the time lapses. We're being shown these videos, but where are the photographs? I'm just saying, if you went to any place, you could take 5 photos, put it on Instagram, and you're there. So where are the photos that are absolute evidence that they're on a base? Because I'm wondering here, if you're in a closed set with LED screens and you photograph it, does it look fake? Is this something that has to be carefully lit and done by video? So I'm wondering, is there a conspicuous absence of just photography? Because I haven't seen any. So I'd like to also see if there's any photographs, because that would surely reveal how far the camera is seeing and if it's seeing a screen or not. So I'm kind of curious about that too.
That's why probably it's taking so long, because they're preparing imagery that probably fits with what they've already shown, to try to mitigate the inconsistencies already shown. Because, like I said, if it was absolutely real, you would not leave, and responsible, you would not leave margin for debate. The very next day, I don't care if you're tired, if I know it would be a long journey and all that, but that is the responsibility of your position, right? The very next day, the image would be out there, entirely unedited, unabridged, nothing, right? The entire imagery, here's 24 hours of imagery, right? It's there, it's available, you go through them, you analyze them the way you want. You pick every second if you like, but it would be immediately there, And we've seen this with NASA claims, with even let's say non-space related media psyops, where 9/11 was an example. 9/11 was an example where footage emerged only after there was the supposedly live footage of the day, and then there was footage that we uncovered this footage only later from amateurs and from this and from that. It's the same thing. They were preparing the footage to try to fit it, and even so, you could see the inconsistencies. So I think that's why the delay is there. And listen, what makes me right now think it's absolutely fake is, from what I've seen and the inconsistencies I've seen, and also from their reaction to the calling out, to the doubts, that to me is an absolute telltale sign that this was entirely scripted, faked, and you are correct. If it was, then it was NASA, for sure. It had to be NASA. With this budget, it had to be.
I was looking at some Antarctica videos, and I noticed it was one video I watched. This man's walking around a base, and as he's walking, you can see the mountains in the back, and in the foreground there's a shed, and then there's some hills. And you see the parallax between these various objects in the background moving in relation to one another. And then I'm looking at the final experiment, and why does it seem like all the hills and the mountains are on the same plane? I don't see the parallax.
If it's close by, it won't do that. It's simple, right? If the image that's being used as a background is close by, then it won't do that effect. It's only if it's distant.
Yeah.
So, and you have, of course, the drone thing as well. I mean, there's several. It's not just one. It's not just the vape. There's several things that one on top of the other. The accumulation of evidence is all against them. And the response that they give us of being all emotional, that is absolutely counterproductive, because that shows that they are compromised. That shows that they are in sort of quote unquote panic about the situation.
It
right?
does not suggest
And
confidence. I mean, if you're confident in the truth and that
Yeah.
you wouldn't be defensive about it. You'd be laughing at the people who are in denial of what is obviously true. But what they're presenting us just hasn't come off as obviously true. So they're having to force it down our throats with a great deal of shame, threats of outgrouping, and the calling you names. It's like, okay, that's red flag number 10 for me. It's just like there's so many red
yeah,
flags here, but
let us not. What was the quote? What was the George Bush quote? Let us not tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories. That is an appeal to emotion as well. So it is exactly the same thing. Saying you're dead to me if you don't believe this, or saying let us not tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories, is this exactly the same thing with different words. It's the same fallacy.
you know
So
what?
we should not and will not ignore this. And I don't particularly care about if it's. I know it's. I mean, the model of the globe is ridiculous, but I don't care about this flat Earth model or the next one or whatever it is. I want the truth. I don't care. I'm not attached particularly to one or the other, but I care about liars and fakers. That I do care. That does get me going. So that's why I'm a bit emotional about this in my exposition. But it's something that we have been observing and combating for a long time, and they have no right to feel emotional in the sense of they feel betrayed or they feel zero. They have zero. It's their responsibility to produce the truth. If they were there, produce the truth.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's all.
exactly. I appreciate your points of view on this because I agree with you 100% on it. Their response is a red flag. And so these red flags are reason for me to say, I'm going to suspend disbelief because there should be none. So thank you very much for your comments on this. And after tomorrow, we'll have to kind of regroup and talk about this again because there's going to be a debate. I don't have high expectations. I haven't seen anything, but I'm resting on my skepticism.
Do send out that link if you can on the newsletter or something. I'd like to follow it, but I don't think I have that channel. I'll probably take a look at that debate.
Okay.
And to be honest, I don't expect much out of it, but yeah, I'll take a look.
I'll post a link because I'll be there in chat, so hopefully it'll be enlightening. All right, well, thanks for the call. I have someone else trying to call in, so call back anytime.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, well, it's Armin Ree, who's got the Pro-Gnostic podcast, and if you're the one who just called in, you can call right back. And so if you can't get in by phone, you can get in via Discord. Doggy Style says there's too much estrogen in the water at Mar-a-Lago. I don't think that's how that works. I don't think that's how it works. Adam Geringer says, thank you. Old school's objects brought into focus will kill the globe. Yeah, look, I'm comparing it. So I'm doing a comparative analysis of randos in Antarctica and the final experiment. And when I'm looking at the other videos, I'm seeing uneven ground, parallax between the mountains and the hills and the objects in the foreground. And it's very uneven. It looks rough. It looks like nature. Then I look at the final experiment and it's like this could have been done in a skating rink. I mean, everything is flat and perfect, and then the background looks painted to me. It looks flat. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, dude, this is Jurassic.
Oh, hey, what's up, Jurassic?
Hey, man, what are you guys talking about right now?
The final experiment. A lot. I did a survey here. Pretty much like one person is slightly giving the benefit of the doubt, but like nobody believes it. What about you?
Yeah, it's 100%. Well, I don't know exactly where they were when they filmed it, some scenes could have been, like you guys say, could have been filmed in some snowy area or whatever, and then some in the studio. But it doesn't even matter. Whatever they filmed doesn't prove that it's not a flat Earth. So that doesn't matter to me anyway. But the Jaron is the least trustable person, and the guy, whoever this Witset, if you could see it in their face that they're not trustable people, bro. So I'm not even worried about, what they can prove or not, because these people are not trustable. Okay, you could see it in their face that they're liars, and one of them is a pastor. And is it true that that video where it says he was saying that that it's okay to lie? He
said the Bible said don't bear false witness, but you can lie, I guess, strategically. Apparently, when he was 33, he made $1 million. So people are like, okay, this guy's a little shady. But he did have a sermon where he said it's okay to lie. And I thought that's a strange thing to say.
Yeah, he's full of crap. I mean, even if he's the fact that he's got lots of money already tells you he's a piece of garbage. But anyway, actually, I didn't call about this thing, but if that's what you guys are talking about, I don't want to interrupt it. I was going to talk about that stupid Cybertruck thing.
Actually, let's talk about the Cybertruck thing, because this is relative to everything else that you often talk about. And of course, the Cybertruck truck going in front of Trump Tower. What's your take on it?
Well, did you see? Okay, first of all, we know that it was a Tesla, and I told you that Tesla equals the word Seattle. If you just use the same letter twice, you can make the word Seattle. Okay, and they're blowing it up, obviously, right? And this was in Nevada, right? And Nevada's the 36th state. Nevada also equals 47, and if you just added up the letters. And of course, Elvis has been dead for 47 years, Trump being the 47th president, right? And the guy, he's got the Elvis in his name, Levelsberger. He's got the Elvis in his name.
Okay, that's funny.
Yeah, he's got the Elvis in his name, scrambled. And he was 37, which is the EL connection. EL means God.
Okay, you caught that.
Looks like,
I brought that up because the 37 thing, because I was talking about Jack Parsons, who's like connected to Elon Musk in a way. They're kind of the same character. But he was 37 when he blew up, and I thought, okay, 37 is an anagram or ambigram for EL. And then also 73, which is like 73 seconds, the Challenger explodes, 1 minute, 13 seconds. The Columbia was a 113th shuttle. So I was like, okay, there's some symbolism here that's been associated with Trump, this idea of the Challenger exploding. But yeah, and the Elvis burger.
Right.
That's funny.
Right. And I told you that Trump's going to get his head wound in Ohio, and the word Ohio itself equals 47. And Ohio's the 17th state. And did you hear what they said? That the guy pulled up, this dude, he pulls up in his Tesla, which is the Seattle, but he pulls up in his Tesla, and it blows up 17 seconds after, okay? So you have the 17-second connection, right? But do you know what time he pulled in?
No.
Oh, you didn't hear? I can't believe you didn't get this. I thought I was telling you stuff you already knew. He pulls in at 8:40, so it's 8:4 with a crown.
Oh, okay. I caught 8:40, and since it wasn't 8:46, I just kind of ignored it. But I didn't think about that. 8:4 and the crown thing.
Crown.
Okay.
That's the head. The crown is the head. It's a face, a head, a ring, a halo, whatever. But it's mainly a head or a crown. But so it's 8:4 with a crown. He's 17 seconds after he pulls in, it blows up. So you have the Trump connection, Ohio connection, 8:4 connection, because it was Trump Tower, right? And they found the guy with a head wound.
Okay. I heard about that, all the conjecture about the head wound. So now you have a head wound and...
Well, he shot himself. They're saying he shot himself.
And the 8:4 thing. Okay, I see where you're getting at with this.
Yeah. They're saying he shot himself. What kind of nonsense is that? None of it makes any sense.
Well, okay, I just happened to be watching a show called The Boys, season 4, episode 7, 4-7, and there's two references to Oswald, and it's about a plot to take out the president. And the main character, Homelander, is based on Trump, more or less. And I'm watching this stuff, and then it's moving into the next episode, 4-8. And 4-8 is the season finale called Assassination Run, and they put a warning label on that episode because it aired 5 days after the Trump shooting. So I've been noticing the 4-8, 8-4. It's always in all these various scenarios, it's correlated with this head wound scenario. So yeah, that's just another hit there. A guy with a head wound, 840.
And they're saying the guy was born on July 22nd. July 22nd is June 11th's reverse date. That's June 11th's reverse date. And in between Elvis's birthday and 7/22 is 6 months, 14 days, which is Trump's birthday. But forget about that. Do you know that both the attackers on that day, they rented cars from this company, Turo, right?
Yeah, I saw that. It's an app, Turo, and I looked up the meaning of it, the etymology. It's like a leak, a water leak. But what do you get out of that word Turo?
Well, I didn't get much out of that, but I got the fact that the address of the headquarters, if you might want to look it up and look at the suite number, and then I'll tell you how it connects. I don't know if you can look it up real quick.
Yeah, okay. It's in San Francisco, and okay, the headquarters is at 116 New Montgomery Suite 700.
So it's 611 backwards. So you got that, and then you have 700. So if you add 116 plus 700, that's 816. That's Elvis's death date. So that's another connection right there. You know, okay. I know that's pushing it, but still, it's there.
Yeah, well, people can say it's pushing it. I don't know. There's a difference between the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where you can cherry pick from a wide range, and then there's something different when you are using a model that gives you some predictive capability and you're able to, from that, ascertain things in a way that seems like you're looking back, but we're looking back in a very targeted way. But anyway, I don't think these are coincidences. I don't believe in coincidences.
But the fact that the guy shot himself in the head in front of Trump Tower at 8:40, 8:4, 17 seconds. I mean, literally, it's telling you every single piece of the puzzle right there, man. I mean, that's why I'm saying it can't be just coincidence. I mean,
and let me add this. So 84 days after the 713 head wound, the ear wound, 84 days after was October 5th when Musk was hanging out with Trump. You know, the whole thing in Butler again. Right. So there's another connection with 84. Is specifically correlated with this upcoming psyop. And 84 days apart at 6/11, they do the moment of silence, but Musk was there, which is foreshadowing. And I also want to point out, in the Netflix show The Madness, the main character is a billionaire who helps the president steal the election, and he finances online Nazis, and he's taken out. So that's based on Musk. So yeah, everything here just seems like it's adding up. With the 84 thing, good catch, 840.
You want to hear something funny? This is something someone brought to my attention today. There's a football player on the Seattle Seahawks team who's known as Black Elvis. And why am I bringing him up? You got to see his birthday. It's so ridiculous. He's a nobody. I've never even heard of him, but he's some guy named Frank Clark. See if his nickname is Black Elvis.
Okay, Frank Clark, a.k.a. Black Elvis. So I've never heard of this guy before.
Right, and he's known as the Shark, too, which is the B side of the sea, by the way. He's known as the Shark and Black Elvis. So
okay, that's funny. That's funny. So he's got Trump's birthday, 6/14.
Yeah. I mean, can you believe that? He's got Trump's birthday. And guess where he went to high school?
Where?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio, and here he is, number 55.
He was 55. Then he returned to the Seahawks at 57. So he was 55 with Seahawks. They traded him, brought him back. It's like a resurrection. But what's crazy is that his dad was killed in a fire with 3 other family members in Cleveland, which is the 216 area code, which is August 4th. August 4th is the 216th day of the year, right?
Yes.
And Cleveland is the 216 area code, and Columbus, Ohio is the 614 area code. That's Trump's birthday. So everything in Ohio connects to Trump. The area codes, the zip codes are all 44s and 45s. Trump is the 44, 45 president. And
so 55.
It's all connected.
55 is an interesting one because it was on the 55th anniversary of MLK, the assassination of MLK. That was the day that Trump was on trial when he was arrested. And at that time, I started picking up on a lot of stuff with the number of 55, but it's always been correlated with the martyr theme, MLK's death. But the 55 thing is interesting here.
Yeah.
But his Trump's birthday, again, funny clue, very consistent with stuff we've seen. And Shark, 100% Beast of the Sea reference.
Real quick, you were talking about the 55, right? Satan equals 55, right? But and how old was Trump during 9/11? He was 55, right? And the year, it's all connected to each other. The year Obama turned 55 because Obama was born on August 4th. That's why he was the president before Trump. He was 55 when Trump was elected president and when he became president. So when Obama turned 55, Trump became president and was elected. Elected president and became president. And Obama was 55. Trump was 55 during 9/11. And Elvis, who is the real Antichrist, Trump is the image of the Antichrist. Elvis was 55 in the year 90. And that year, the Super Bowl was 55-10, which is the number of Satan, 55-10. And Elvis turned 90 that year.
And was it Super Bowl 55 where The Weeknd performed with the head injury thing?
Yes, exactly. That's another connection to Trump, which I've shown. The Weeknd playing with the head wound. And that was the Satan Super Bowl, the 55th Super Bowl.
Yeah, and his birthday is 2/16. Yeah, The Weeknd is another piece of the puzzle. His name's Abel, like Abe Lincoln or Canaan Abel.
Right.
Another head wound reference. And check this out. The Cybertruck suspect was a, quote, Rambo type. So he's been described as Rambo, which is interesting because recently Sylvester Stallone has been hanging out with Trump. And Stallone referenced the Resurrection gym where Rocky was filmed. And so there was something with Sylvester Stallone has been brought up. But anyway, the Cybertruck guy was compared to Rambo.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know what I forgot? I forgot the Rose Bowl. The Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl. So the Rose Bowl was won by Ohio. And on that same day, Elvis was at the Rose Parade. Did you see that?
Oh, no, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, Elvis was on the float, the Mississippi float. Elvis was the main guy and the BB King. And Elvis was known as the King, obviously. But so and who was the Grand Marshal of the Rose Parade? Billie Jean King. So you have a king representative. She's born on, that creature, Billie Jean King, that lawnmower, that it was born on Elvis, JFK's death day, 11/22. So you have a lot of connections with the king there, and Elvis was at the Rose Parade. He was one of the floats,
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at January 6th is tomorrow. Do you have any expectations for Trump getting in? Do you think there's going to be any kind of...
I don't think there's going to be any issues. I really don't, because I believe they need this to happen and just go in, because I don't see how he can't be the 47th president. I would be so surprised if they did something ridiculous. But obviously they could have some kind of weird things happen, but I still think he's going to get in. But did you hear that he's going to have a party the day before the inauguration?
Yep. And so some lefties are saying he's bringing in his mob because they think there's going to be some insurrection attempt. And so there are some who are projecting some kind of clash. But, as far as this bigger picture goes, it seems like all the pieces are in place. And this is the year that it all goes down. And so we've been waiting for this. And this is...
Hold on, man. Just real quick. Somebody's saying there was 84 band members in that marching band for the Ohio. Because, they have the marching bands at the Rose Parade.
Oh, yes.
Someone's saying there was 84 people there. That's a good one, because if it's right, it's a good one. But just check this out. One last thing. He's getting his inauguration on MLK Day, right?
119, right?
No, 120.
Oh, 120. Okay.
That's the party he's having. He's having the party on 119.
That's right.
MLK Day is his inauguration day.
Okay. So his arrest date was MLK's 55th assassination anniversary, and now MLK Day, he's getting inaugurated.
And MLK was assassinated, right? So he's having inauguration day on MLK Day. And what's interesting, this is the first time since Nixon that the flag is going to be at half staff, which means death.
Right, and Trump's birthday is Flag Day. There's a lot of significance with the flag
right.
in
there
these
you
things.
Go. See, that's what I'm talking about. And the day that Nixon, when it happened with Nixon, it was on his second term. You know who died? That's why they had it at half staff. Trump. And Truman was the president. Truman was the 33rd president, and he was the president when Trump was born. And he's the buck stops here president, because they're going to stop the buck. The Buckeye State is Ohio.
Truman Trump, fascinating, and this is all really intriguing here. The Cybertruck connections, 840 head wound, great connections there. I had let all that kind of pass over, but now that I think about it, the head wound thing and.
All right, bro. Anyway, I just wanted to catch you up on that because I don't know if you knew, but
no, I did not. And this is a consistent thing. There was one more thing. The Batman Caped Crusader on Amazon ended their season with the Rupert Thorne, which is a Trump guy getting his right ear cut when a boomerang's thrown at him, as a warning for the next season. Amazon bought the second season on 8/4. So then I'm watching the show called The Boys, and then you have episode 4/7, season 4, episode 7, where they're planning the assassination. Then episode 4/8, assassination run, but it ends on a cliffhanger. So it looks to me like we're waiting for the next season to begin. So it's almost like there's cliffhangers on all these different shows that had some prediction for this Trump head wound thing. So it just seems to me we're entering the next season. This presidential term is like a season in this psyop or something. Like now we're getting ready for the next scene.
Yeah, and somebody in your chat was mentioning something about a Cybertruck. The Cybertruck came out on 11/6.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Wow, that's a good one too. Yeah. Anyway, man, Anyway, man, good show as usual.
Yeah.
I'll talk.
Okay, good. Thanks for the information. Have a great evening.
All right.
Yeah, this 6/14 date is interesting. I was looking at it when I was looking at the show, the movie Don't Look Up, about a comet that's going to hit the Earth in 6 months and 14 days. And Trump's birthday figures in a lot of these psyops. Like we were talking about the Rust movie shooting where Alec Baldwin, who plays Trump on SNL, shot the director and the cinematographer. The director had Trump's birthday. 6/14, 6 months, 14 days, the comet hits. It's just been this recurring theme. And these numbers, these dates, these are just clues. These are just, I would say it's almost like the script writers have their internal, it's a closed system, a script, but they have these almost like internal communication. All right, let's see what else we have here. Piano Dante says the flag is at half-mast in one of the Economist magazine covers, and it has Trump's silhouette. I'm doing a 33 or so minute deep dive on the Trump head wound in Butler and all the predictive programming that led up to it. And there are a number of things in the Atlantic, 2 instances of this prediction in the Atlantic. And interestingly, Alex Soros, I think he was just given an award by Biden. So George Soros received a Presidential Medal of Freedom, but they gave it to his son, Alex Soros. Alex Soros has the Atlantic magazine, and the Atlantic is the one, which I have on my Twitter account, that had foreshadowing for Trump's ear wound. Like, this is specificity. And if you haven't seen it, here's the image from the Atlantic. This is quite damning. This is very specific. This is not the first time the Atlantic foreshadowed it, and it shows you the very part of his ear where he got clipped. And of course, this is before it happened. Ted Stryker in here with 10 wrenches. R. Cook, good old-fashioned Tricky Woo. Lore Master Cat, G33, Hell Nah, Nicholas Pitts, Neat, Chiops, K-Swan, and A-Job 2677. Latest members of the IPS Blue Wrench Lodge. So when I do these 30-minute breakdowns, it's for noobs, but it's also to consolidate information, and those will be made available for you members first. If you're a member of the Patreon or any of the sites or YouTube, you'll get those first. Since we're on the topic, here's Laura Loomer. Coincidence or coordination? On 9/11, Time magazine released this. Trump in trouble. So here's Trump, red flag in the background, in a sand pit. Trump in trouble. 9/11. And this came out right before the Ryan Routh was on the golf course ready to shoot Trump. We have so many examples of this that I'm doing a separate breakdown of it because we're making some progress here in determining the methodology of mass media deception and Psywar itself, and how the techniques of perception management merge with entertainment and future fake news. And they have a system here. It is systemic fakery. These are not anomalies. History is being made in front of us day by day, and it looks like fake news. But over time, all that fake news piling up becomes fake history. And we were born into a world informed by fake history and informed by fake news. Okay, let's continue here. I'm seeing a lot of stuff like this. Fact: Trump is constitutionally disqualified from being sworn in under the 14th Amendment. So I'm seeing like this left-wing version of QAnon springing up, like insurrection stuff. And now you know, this is how you know that Whitsitt has angered the truth community. They're accusing him of having a female skull, and they're quoting Deuteronomy, suggesting that he is angering God. He is an abomination to God because he's not wearing the appropriate garments. When the transvestigators start putting diagrams on your face, it means that you've made them mad. You've angered the people who are easily angered and convinced that everybody's a shill. I don't endorse this nonsense. It's just funny. I mean, it's not funny. Is it sad? I don't know what to call it. You've made it. Whitsitt has made it. You're officially a shill when somebody has misgendered you. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Just scrolling through my notes. There's quite a lot to cover. Elon Musk changed his name to Kekius Maximus, and he has 911 followers. He's always just flaunting this stuff. He's a effective meme. I don't know, a meme engineer. He knows how to tap into things and get people to react. Or rather, the people who write his scripts. I mean, is he autonomous? Is anybody here operating under the presupposition that any of these world stage characters are autonomous? No, it's not like they're rogue or anything. It's the Truman Show. Okay, check this out. This is
It's a reality show that pits teams of elite soldiers from around the world against each other.
Matt and Tim.
Yeah, so this History Channel show about the Las Vegas trucks thing, that tells you this guy was an actor. Okay, scrolling down, this is what I was looking for. So here's some more stuff about Timothy McVeigh, and this is good. There are a number of really good breakdowns where people are noticing the McVeigh thing, but other stuff has come out. Other than his resemblance and the connections to this FBI agent, people are finding anomalies with the entire story. Like apparently, when Timothy McVeigh was executed, there were doubts as to whether he was dead, according to somebody, and there was no autopsy. I don't even think that I don't know if we have any information about a burial ground, but I'm noticing a lot of people picking apart the Timothy McVeigh story. I'll have to do a special deep dive on it because McVeigh blew up 168 people and Special Agent Weissapal saved 168. So there's that, which is kind of interesting. Now, this is kind of neat. I wasn't expecting this. So Synchromorpheus had really focused on this weird Joker jester statue at the site of the Magdeburg truck attack. Another attacker, terrorist who was on the BBC. So he had pointed this out. He said it's overlooking the scene. He thought it might have some significance. I remember looking at it thinking, okay, well, yeah, it may. Well, sure enough, the next truck attack happens where? As Synchromorpheus points out, the jester Joker is one of the main symbols at Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and it's a very common character you see in the parades. So that's kind of interesting that you have these scenes of these two terrorist truck attacks. Both characters have backgrounds. They have videos you can find online, so they're not just two-dimensional. Both truck attacks, one Christmas, one New Year's, and this Joker element is kind of present at both of them. Interesting connection there. There have been, look, we're just a few days into the new year, and we've been hit with so many psyops back to back. And this is good news for us. Like, I don't have a problem with any of this. Like, this is what we do. And since I'm not saddled with the mistaken belief that these things are real, I don't have any negative side effects from analyzing the news. This is like film criticism for me. Someone shared this. The young Republicans have this poster of Donald Trump with a little red elephant on the side of the head. But the red elephant looks like a bullet hole. Like, doesn't that look like a bullet hole on the side of his head? That's the Washington, D.C. Young Republicans. This came out on March 22nd of last year. And someone noted, and this is maybe a weak connection, maybe not, but they've noted that there's 666 days from this image being posted as a new cover photo until January 19th. So I don't know what to make of that. These connections between dates are kind of weak. They don't often tell you anything, although there are instances of valid, provable connections. As a rule, I kind of tend to dismiss those as cherry picking and sharpshooting. Again, look at this connection. This is from The Boys, episode 4-7, an episode that had two references to Lee Harvey Oswald. Two. One to Dealey Plaza, one to Oswald. The whole plot is about the president being taken out. So here you have the Homelander flag behind him, bullet hole on him on the screen, sky behind him, and the guy on the left has glasses, sunglasses, dark sunglasses. Here's Trump, guy behind him, dark sunglasses, flag, and sky. And Trump, again, is the person that the Homelander is a parody of. And again, the episode would have aired the day before the Trump shooting, and then the following episode was 5 days later. So this is concurrent programming. If you watched this show about this Trump-like character, you would have seen this image, which nearly perfectly correlates with the Trump fight, fight, fight image. Lickety Split says, Jester could have had Mercury reference. Cut by the Book says, Royal Order of Jesters, Freemasons. All valid points here. I didn't spend a lot of time on Foggate. Mysterious chemical smell, getting people sick, and you have these individuals who just look confused, baffled. This is an area of engineered panic. Like, we're seeing a new wave of conspiracy theories, or maybe it's not new, it's just becoming more noticeable, where they create entire narratives that go viral with false eyewitnesses, actors. They get on TikTok, they spread some BS, and then somebody on Twitter with millions of followers will take that clip and just throw it out there because it's easy to get engagement. So it's like engagement bait, clickbait trutherism. But it's beyond just clickbait and small-time grifters. This is psywar. These are indeed psyops. This is a super heavy. A lot of people are sharing this image of this video of the super heavy falling into the ocean, and it looks like these things are not only reusable but recyclable. This super heavy rocket appears to be made out of cardboard, corrugated cardboard. Now, just because it looks like it's made out of cardboard, like they bought this at Party City, doesn't mean that's really what happened. I looked into it, and I read that these things are lightweight and pressurized, and that's why it's collapsing. So it's not just a cheap prop, just looks that way. And I would argue, too, that not everything they do is fake. You know, it's fake once they get past the Kármán line. It looks like CGI according to Elon Musk. And I agree with him. I agree with Elon Musk that the images they show us from space looking at Earth look like CGI. I disagree with his opinion that these things are real. Here's Candace Owens spreading a truther guardrail. The CIA never discontinued the Manchurian Candidate. This is MK Ultra. Man who died in Tesla Cybertruck was an active duty Army soldier, and he was known at Fort Bragg. And then you have the guy from New Orleans, Fort Bragg. And then you have Ryan Wesley Routh, Fort Bragg. And then you have Timothy McVeigh, Fort Bragg. So people are looking at these various connections and suggesting that these are all mind-controlled assassins, mind-controlled killers. And the reason why Candace Owens is sharing this narrative is that this is an acceptable thing for alt media to believe. You can't believe these things are fake. You can believe that the media is covering up that these were mind-controlled assassins. You see how that works? They cover up the mundane with something extraordinary. Okay, let's go ahead and see if I can get through the rest of my links here. This is Infinite Planes Sunday, and we will be live tomorrow. I'll have a lot more time. Hey, check this out. The Turner Diaries. This was from a show called The Order. I gotta go watch it. I have to rent it. The Turner Diaries has been used as a blueprint for domestic terrorism for 40 years, influencing the Oklahoma City bombing and the insurrection on January 6th. So that's an interesting connection. Alex Jones, Dave Koresh, Timothy McVeigh, Waco, and then from Waco to January 6th. And the Turner Diaries is what motivated McVeigh to do the Oklahoma City bombing in this narrative. So it's kind of notable here that this movie that just came out is actually suggesting that the Turner Diaries had something to do with January 6th. It's a prop. I don't know if that's even accurate. I mean, how many people here, how many MAGAs have even read it? I would say none. But it is a prop. If you remember in 2020, the McCloskeys, those are the couple that came out when the BLM was marching down their road, and they started waving guns around at the marching protesters. They called this the St. Louis gun-toting incident. So here are the McCloskeys coming out of the house armed because the New World Order is sending troops down the street. Well, I started listening to the audiobook of the Turner Diaries, and it starts off where the guy and his wife, the Turners, are watching as the NWO is sending, specifically, they're sending black soldiers to take their guns. So if you look at the cover of the Turner Diaries, you have the scene where the troops are coming in, the New World Order troops, and they're taking the guns. And the McCloskeys are hiding. So here are the McCloskeys in front of their home with their guns as the equality police are running around taking the guns. So the gonna take our guns scenario that Jones has been pushing since Waco is part of this bigger agenda. The Turner Diaries is a reference to the turning point. The turning point is when the right wing goes militant. And it's not a coincidence that the lead political action committee for the conservatives is called Turning Point USA. But now, look at the cover art for the Turner Diaries. So the equality police are marching down the road. This is BLM. And here is the main character and his wife, armed. And look at what they're wearing. And now let's look again at the McCloskeys. She's wearing the Hamburglar shirt, black and white horizontal stripes, and he's wearing a polo that's unbuttoned. Look at the Turner Diaries, Hamburglar shirt, and he's wearing an open polo. So the McCloskeys stepped right out of the Turner Diaries, like on its 42nd anniversary, practically. Not a coincidence. Diana South says, finger on trigger, very wrong stance. Yeah, I don't think I'm worried about her finger on the trigger. I'm pretty sure that's a cigarette lighter. Like, it doesn't look like a real gun. It looks like a prop. And here they are defending their big empty mansion in this gated community surrounded by poor neighborhoods. So this is also tying into the class warfare thing, suggesting that, the equality police theme is in here as well. But Turner Diaries is back in the news. It's back in the movies. Not a coincidence. So tomorrow, I think we should have some kind of conclusion with regard to the final experiment. The people who are being questioned should not take it seriously. If people question my claims, people question me all the time. They say there's no way that man orchestrates all the psyops. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine dealing with questions because it allows me to fine-tune my arguments. Plain Dakota says, has anybody actually read this book? Well, the way it was originally published, it was published as like a weekly thing, diary entries over time, and then later it was consolidated into a book. And I tried reading once before I was really interested in this topic. And the gist of it was like he's reporting from the front lines in this race war. And it's whites against everybody, and they nuke everybody, so it's the whites getting the nukes. So this is one of the recurring themes as well. But I have a podcast I've been listening to where somebody's reading it and reviewing it. And I'm likely going to finish that today. Diana South says, they probably use prop guns like the wooden guns in the Ukraine photos. Yeah, exactly. James Fetzer says, longtime residents of New Orleans report the latest attempt to induce fear with terror attack on closer inspection appears to be staged. Central casting. I'll have to watch that. Jim Fetzer is pretty solid on calling everything fake. He's not a full-blown auto-hoaxer, but I don't hold that against people who've been in this for decades. There's a different methodology. And if you are stuck on one perspective for a long time, it's a little difficult to break from certain presuppositions, but his fact-finding is reliable. And I don't care about people's conclusions. I'm more interested in their facts. Okay, we've made some progress. I know there's been a lot to catch up on. We had a couple of great callers. Appreciate those as always. And I look forward to tomorrow's debate. I'll make sure I send a live stream notification if I'll be watching it live, because I want to see how they address these various claims. You shouldn't just trust people. Like if I tell you that I remember Nelson Mandela had braces when Ed McMahon gave him a multi-million-dollar check, it would be wrong for me to ask you to believe me out of loyalty and to sacrifice your critical thinking. I would never do that. I wouldn't use fear or guilt to make you believe something that I say. I'm like, don't believe me, believe the facts. Okay, Thrustazar says, don't forget about the interrogator, aka Marathon Man. Not sure what you're referring to here. If you want to add some details. So we're going to go ahead and end it here. Truth-ertainment. Truth-ertainment is all you're ever going to get from alt media influencers. So I guess I should bring this up. Truth-ertainment is a waste of time. Alt media is a waste of time. Anybody not engaging in full-blown media deconstruction and calling out fakery is wasting your time. If they're dragging you into the political horseshoe, it's a waste of time. And so that's one of the points we need to bring up, is that being right has its perks. And one of the things that we benefit from being correct here in our assessment is we're not wasting our time. William D. says, Fetzer used to set up tables outside USPO in New York City, books and papers on a table. I talked to him 30 years ago. He said this is the balkanization of USA. Fetzer was the first person I talked to in this realm. I went from Normieville to MSM Plus, talking about conspiracies. I got engaged with this after I saw the Charleston shooting, and I was examining that event, and I thought the character was fake. He seemed like a composite. And I sent an email to Fetzer, and we ended up having a lengthy Skype conversation about it. Unfortunately, my internet was terrible, so the recording wasn't ever released, but I've worked with him a couple of times. In fact, Fetzer got censored for a book he wrote on Sandy Hook. He got censored on Kindle. And I hit him up and I said, hey, I'm in a publishing company. Why don't you work with one of my writers and take your book on the subject of that school shooting and turn it into a work of fiction? We'll use fiction to bypass censorship. So he worked out a script, and we published something called The Capstone Event by James Fetzer. It's on Amazon. It's an audiobook. And the cover art, funnily enough, is a mashup of David Hogg and Adam Lanza. We literally put them together. But this was the beginning of a publishing company where my premise was, let me take all of the most censored conspiracy theories and turn them into short form fiction, novellas and short story collections, and publish them and get past the censors. And this is something I'm still interested in doing, but my initial experiment was with Jim Fetzer, and it was off to a great start. So if you haven't read it, read it, and it proves that you can bypass the censors. But the cover art was funny. The Capstone Event, they never thought they would lose control. And I think the protagonist is kind of a mashup between Jim Fetzer and Wolfgang Halbig. And it explains in a plausible manner from the inside how the psyop worked. But we did it just to show Bezos at the time, but show Amazon that no, they will not be able to censor ideas. We will just repackage them. We will find a way. All right, well, we're off to a great start. Terror attacks. We've got snow, fog, drones. What else is happening right now? Oh, tomorrow, January 6th. Is the Democrat Party going to J6 tomorrow? They're going to do another J6? Are they going to do something to stop the certification? John Francis says, shows like The View is state propaganda by actors disguised as organic chit-chat. I agree with that. It's a great tactic. It's consensus building. It's not just them on the stage, but it's the audience. So if they say something and the audience laughs, hey, that's funny. If they say something and the audience boos, it's not funny. They use these shows like 2 Minutes of Hate in 1984. They tell the public who to hate, what opinions are acceptable. Late night talk shows like Jimmy Fallon or Kimmel, they do the same thing. They're using the audience to kind of create this sense of a consensus around certain opinions, and it works. People are scared of going against the mob. People are scared to contradict the group. They're afraid of being outgrouped, and that's a very potent fear. That's why I sort of called out Jaron and others, and McToon for getting big mad. Like, why are you guys getting so mad about this? If you're so mad that you're gonna try to shame people into not believing you, you're actually asking them to not think. And that's kind of the opposite of what we're about here. And I look forward to be proven wrong. Like I think it'd be great. I think it'd be kind of funny. Convince me that the moon landing was real, and I'm open to it. You know, I'm not averse to the truth. I'm not engaged in reality denialism. You know, facts are facts. They're stubborn things. But the way you convince us is with reason and good argumentation. This consensus building by shaming people, yeah, that's mainstream stuff. That's how they do it in the mainstream. Anyway, this has been great. Appreciate the calls and the comments. This is Symbia, COVID Cooties. Have a great evening.
Smoke screen.